Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another thrill-packed, quarantined edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. I may still be the only person quarantining. When I do peep my head out in public, I see a lot of weaselly, snotty-looking fuckers not wearing masks, and they're just wandering around. But anyway, I digress. Today, on the program, a potpourri of punditry on pro wrestling. Viewer mail and questions, which we will go into in as little depth as possible. FTR has picked up a turd by the clean end and had a good match on All Friends Wrestling, some memories of Mr. Wrestling #2, and a variety of candid conversation with my cohort and co-host, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting line, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you. I have no witty finish for the rest of this bit, so I will simply give him the hand that he deserves, ladies and gentlemen, the great Brian Last.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. What a pleasure it is to be here. Aloha, Jim. Swami's feeling a little neglected. You don't mention him anymore, but
Slammy's pappy.
It's an honor to be here. Another candid conversation episode. I don't know how candid these conversations truly are.
Well, hold on here a second, goddammit. We'll just say American Heritage Dictionary 3rd edition. Right here, I keep on my desk.
Let's hear
within reach at all times. Wait a minute, my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, so this may take us Caligula, Calorie, Canada Goose.
We took all candid cameras.
Canker sore. Okay, we're going to back up. Let's see. Canis Major, Cane, Candlepin, Candle, Candid.
Did Alan Funt go through all this work?
I don't know. I think he just kind of went and shot it commando style. Candid, free from prejudice, impartial, direct and frank, straightforward, not posed or rehearsed. I was right.
You were right. This will certainly
candid
be
conversation.
Certainly another candid conversation filled episode.
It's going to be one of those days, folks. No, here's the thing. And Brian knows this. Every once in a while, I get in this mood where I don't really know if I can be entertaining. Do I have enough to talk about that the people will be happy to hear? Especially since you fucking asshole, been telling me how many people have been listening to this program lately. I feel extra pressured. I don't want people all over the world to be going, it's network news. Cornette had a shitty show. Boy, he sucks. Back in the old days, there were like 22,000 people in the whole world that would know that I sucked and wasn't entertaining. And what the fuck's the chance I'm going to run into any of them, right? But now they're everywhere. So I have extra pressure, and I'm like, what do we talk about? Obviously, there's plenty of things going on in the world. There's a global pandemic, riots in the streets, protests, lunatic in the White House, police and military marching on American citizens, people around the world in an uproar. The stock market's down 1,500 points today before we recorded this. There's plenty to talk about, but what do the people want to hear me talk about besides this bullshit outlaw mud show modern wrestling that if I had the time lately to watch, I've just sworn off watching or don't want to watch, puts me in a bad mood. But I've since I'm running this mail order merchandise empire, we'll get to later. I have very little time to watch stuff, and I view watching some of these programs like going to the, get the every 5 or 10 year colonoscopy. And but anyway, so I'm thinking sometimes, well, geez, I don't know what to think, and is the show really going to be that good? Blah blah blah. But I went to some viewer emails to try to get some things that people might hear about, and I got one that basically tells me why we do this show every week, even when, and actually twice a week, count the drive-through, even when I think it might suck or I just don't have anything to talk about, but I feel some responsibility. For some reason, people find us entertaining, Brian. I don't know about you. They find me entertaining. I think they put up with you.
That's right.
But you're not even going to no protest there on that.
I agree with you.
You know where it'll go anyway. All right. But anyway, Patrick from Nova Scotia send me a email. I'm going to start in the middle because he introduces himself and says some complimentary things, etc. But anyway, he said, Last April, shortly after I found the experience, my son became sick. He had been almost 3 years in remission, so we were shocked to find out his cancer had returned. He had beaten an aggressive cancer before, but when it came back, we knew it was bad news. He died in April of this year after an incredibly tough year.
Oh,
cancer is a brutal disease. He was an amazing kid. We miss him dearly, and days without him hurt. He said, "Thank you, Jim, for retweeting an attempt of mine to get a message from Roman Reigns last year." And that's why, because I remember that. It was a picture of a kid. His name was Arden. And, I tried to retweet it and, because they were trying to get a hold of Roman Reigns. Anyway, nevertheless, Roman was Arden's favorite wrestler, and staying up late for pay-per-view Sundays were a special night between us right up to the Royal Rumble this year. Rumbles were his favorite. Your podcast and drive-through gave me a much-needed distraction and still does. My wife continues to tolerate the wrestling history I now talk about weekly after listening. I never let Arden listen. Too many new words and phrases to teach him and explain. But whenever I wear the Cornette face T-shirt, I was asked who that is, and I would say that it is a wrestling podcast I listen to, and that Jim Cornette yells at the world so I don't have to. Please keep screaming at the world. I'm sure it's important to a lot of people, not just me. So thank you, Patrick. Anyway, and we are sorry, but
yeah,
I guess we ain't just assing off amongst ourselves anymore, Brian. We actually have people to fucking entertain and or talk down to, depending on which side they're on. We got to keep screaming at the world.
You scream at the world. I just scream the mothership.
No, you get pissed every once in a while. I'll go on one of your tirades. Ask Chris Jericho, the fucking family of four that moved out of the seat of his pants after the fucking ass chewing you gave him here a few weeks ago. You get fired up.
I went easy on him.
No, there was venom in your voice. Speaking of which, I'm starting to get heat in other places now. I'll have you know. I got back from the post office this morning. That's my morning social activity, and I've said it before, and I'm now 3 months. As a matter of fact, this week, 3 months anniversary. I have been nowhere in public except for the post office, a small convenience store on a side road near the post office, and a couple times I went over to our single-person copy printing place to pick up DVD covers and things of that nature. And he's the only guy in there. But so the post office is my social activity. And, I've said we knock the customers and crack jokes and et cetera, but now I've found out. And by the way, Stacy now says my post office outfit now in the summertime when it was 90 the other day in Louisville looks ridiculous. It's black sweatpants, long-legged sweatpants, a T-shirt underneath a light but completely long-sleeved warm-up jacket that I can zip up to the neck. I got now my custom-made badass black mask on that goes from my nose to my toes. No, from my nose to the bottom of my chin. And that's covered. And I got the fucking latex gloves on like I'm walking around about to give somebody a fucking proctological examination. And that's what I go to the post office. I ain't showing any skin. Especially around some of these filthy people that are not wearing their masks and bringing kids that touch every surface in the world. They're bringing them in just barefoot and fucking, well, not pregnant, but barefoot and fucking barehanded and slobbering all over everything with their ice cream cones. I hate children. Anyway,
so ice cream cones too.
And ice cream cone, not the ice cream, just the cone. But anyway, Stace calls it my post office ninja outfit because I'm almost completely covered in black except for the blue gloves. So that way you can see I'm not a threat to anybody. I got the blue gloves on. I'm a doctor. But when I look kind of like Cartman. Did you see the episode of South Park when San Francisco was overtaken by smog because of all the hippies and the people driving electric cars? Cartman.
I may have. I don't know.
Cartman had to go in a hazmat suit connected to a long hose, an air hose that Butters was operating, so he wouldn't get any of the smug on him. And he, okay, give me some more slop, Butters. Anyway, I look like I got a hazmat suit on. I go in there now. Bree slips me the information today. She said, you're getting quite well known around here because I have been going often for quite some time now. She said sometimes people that don't know who I am will come in the afternoon and they'll say, I was here this morning, but I saw that guy that mails all the packages and I just didn't have time to wait. So I had to come back. And other people have apparently noticed, but they don't approach me. I guess if I was covered from head to toe, and I wouldn't approach me either. But they said, "Boy, Cornette sends a lot of packages, doesn't he?" I'm getting heat. I'm afraid I'm going to be shanked as I'm going back after the line is out the fucking door and 6 feet apart, and I'm there for. Although Bree processed, I'll have 100 domestic packages. Yesterday morning in just a little over 45 minutes and did 20 internationals and 15 domestics in just at an hour today, which is phenomenal timing. Anyway, I guess this is a good time for the Cornette's Collectibles update.
I guess
since we're on that subject. If you sent me money before June the 3rd, your stuff is in the mail or you've already got it. Except for about a half a dozen medium Cornette face t-shirts. We're waiting on the restock to come in first next week. And we're waiting on Amazon is slow with the Gardens restock delivery. Tuesday night, the Gardens book. So we've got a few of those. We're hanging out waiting on the next shipment. And if you ordered between June 3rd and June 10th, those are going to start going out this coming week. What is today? Friday, June 13th. Oh my God.
12th.
Is it? No, 12th. Oh, thank goodness. That's all we need. Friday, June 12th. So if that'll the next week, the week of Monday, June 15th, all that stuff from the 3rd to the 10th will be going out. And should I tell them the big news now that we revealed on the drive-thru? Oh boy. The action figure, the official Jim Cornette action figure from Figures Toy Company that has the original version has been on sale for a few years. Every time we get some more of them, they sell out quickly. China is not cooperating. Those kids don't work nearly as fast as they used to. But I told the story and I'll tell it again. Forgive me, folks, but I want to, in the interest of full disclosure, January of 2019, I got with Figures Toy Company. We thought, boy, this will be a great thing, a holiday variant for Christmas season this year. You and your red and green outfit, the red pants, the green jacket, the red tie, the festive colors I used to wear as a manager, right? And we were just going to limited edition variant and put it on sale during the holiday season. That was January of 2019. We ordered those. Several things happened since then. One, I got a lot more popular. And we didn't order enough to begin with. And two, it has taken, instead of 5 months that it was taking up until that point to get these things, it has taken a year and a half. And so I am going to have 400 of these red and green variants of the official action figure. That's it for at least another year. And Figures Toy Company had a minimum amount that they've retained for their obligations with the online stores, etc., but you can't get them autographed there. I should mention that. However, this coming Monday, June 15th at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to put the red and green figure on sale at jimcornette.com. I'm a glutton for punishment. We don't know how it's going to do. Things have tended to break the internet here lately whenever we've done something like this, but I don't know how else to do it. I'm giving you fair warning. They might last a week. They might last that day. They might be around till Christmas this year, but I wouldn't bet on it. 400 of these things, jimcornette.com. I'm not even doing a banner because they're not going to be around long enough. Click on collectibles at the top of the homepage, and it'll take you to the page with all of the various merchandise. I won't mention any of the other merchandise because I don't want to start a panic. But if you want this figure, and it is beautiful, it's bright red and green. Monday, June 15th, jimcornette.com, 9 a.m. Eastern, while they last, however long they last. And I'll be monitoring so that we can cut it off when they sell out before it gets out of hand. Have they been warned sufficiently, Brian?
I think they have. I don't know if you were prepared for what's about to happen.
Well, the good thing about this, it's not like the behind the curtain that sold 1,500 in 4 days, because then I still had 1,500 orders. This is like 400 of them, and after that, there's still other stuff to buy, but it's not like urgent. Take your time, folks. Take your time, do it right. You can do it, baby. Do it tonight. Remember the SOS band?
I do.
Boy, she was hot too.
Maybe when things get back on track, maybe the next variant you could do is the white suit from 1988.
It'd be juiced. They sold an Abdullah the Butcher figure, some independent toy company 25, 30 years ago or whatever. And he was covered, he had the white butcher pants on. He was covered in blood already. He came with juice and it just dripped all over.
Well, no, there was some, I don't remember where it was. I want to say it was out of Maryland, but I could be wrong. But there was some company that put out a whole series of figures. There was an Abdullah, there was a Bruno, there was, I think, a Nikolai Volkov, Eddie Gilbert. And there was like a regular version and then a version covered in blood, but it just looked like someone dripped red ink in random spots on the figure. It wasn't the best looking figure, I hate to say.
Well, but mine is professionally done by small children in China. So get them while you can, because they ain't going to be around too long. And we should mention... thank you to everybody. We've crossed several milestones on the Patreon, Jim Cornette's College of Wrestling Knowledge, where if you are one of these people who have come upon this program of recent, and are not aware that we've been doing this for years and years and years and fucking years. Anyway, there's hundreds and thousands of hours of our programming in the can, as they say, and that's where you should really listen to it, folks, in the can. And we are starting to put all of that up. It's all going to be available, and many, many dozens and dozens of shows. I sound like I'm doing Steiner math now. A lot of the shows, the Cornette's drive-through and the experience right from the very beginning, right from the insemination point of our takeover of the audio airwaves is on Patreon right now. Is that not correct, Brian?
That is correct. Patreon.com/Cornette. We are right now up to September 2014. So that's almost an entire year's worth of drive-through and experience episodes. Of course, it began, I believe, Thanksgiving time, 2013. Lots of great guests, lots of conversations. A lot of these feuds that you have with various people in wrestling, hear how they started on these old episodes of The Experience and the drive-through. And hear Alice, who so many people miss.
I wasn't aware of that. I have no recollection of that.
But patreon.com/Cornette, $5 a month gets you in the door and just
have we even done the math now? Is it a penny a fucking day or something now, or a penny an hour for all the, it's very cheap for all the content you get, because we don't want to gouge people in a time of international crisis.
That's right. It's very, very cheap.
It's cheap. It's cheap. It's tawdry. It's cheap and tawdry, and it's minuscule. You'll never miss this amount of money. You can find this amount of money in your couch cushions.
New episodes uploaded, or old episodes uploaded for the first time every Sunday evening. Another batch of shows.
Besides Sunday night, just like Ed Sullivan, you can't miss me.
That's right.
But one person did, in all seriousness, one person emailed me and said something to the, I don't have it in front of me, but something to the effect of, I'll say one thing about you, motherfucker, you're consistent. Your stories never change. They must be the truth, because you couldn't remember a lie in that much detail, and your opinions never change, and you're goddamn, if you don't like somebody, you're consistent. I appreciate that. Okay, did you hear? Here's another health menace. I was talking to my banker. I love him. He's been with me for a number of years, and he's based out of the Chicago office, but whenever he comes to Louisville, we have Burgoo and blah, blah, blah. But anyway, he's been working remotely since March, right? Because he works in a giant, like a 30-story building in Chicago, and it's, the whole bank and fucking headquarters there and everything, with all the hundreds and thousands of employees. How many people would work in a 30-story skyscraper, right? And they were talking about opening up like limited capacity or whatever, or the various options where they could have people but not as many people, or people staggered teams or whatever. But something has come up that he brought to my attention, and now it makes perfect sense. But you know, all these office buildings, Brian, now, especially in the big cities, the newer buildings that have these fucking power flush toilets that would literally, when you flush the toilet, it's not like your toilet at home where the shit goes down, but you can watch it go. It takes its time and it swirls a little bit. But these fucking industrial, giant power flush toilets, you push that button, and my God, if you were still sitting on it, you get the impression it would take your fucking intestines. This massive fire hose of water and this horrible noise, and you've seen them, you've heard them, you've used them, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you can concur with what I'm saying, that it is indeed a powerful stream and a loud flush, and it has force with which it sends that shit to the city with conviction.
I think, back you up on that, yes.
Okay, well, apparently now they've done one of these fucking computer simulations, and all along, it's been like this. We just didn't have the coronavirus, but now all these brand new, highfalutin, expensive, big-time power flush toilets in all these big buildings and big businesses are literally an atomic bomb of piss, shit, and virus particles that fucking fly everywhere. When you hit that goddamn, it's fucking minute. You can't feel the splashing on your leg, which is why I ain't going out with any bare skin for the next year and a half. You can't feel it. You don't, but it's not scalding, but it's there. It's a fucking atomic bomb of piss, shit, and virus particles that's being slapped into that fucking bowl and then spread all around. So the only way you can really be safe by going back to work is if you wear an adult diaper and don't use an exterior method of pissing or shitting for 8 hours.
It's funny. A friend of Suzanne and I yesterday put on Facebook an article, and she said, "This is why I'm so crazy about germs and stuff." And it said that anytime you go to the bathroom, you should put the lid down before you flush, because even a regular toilet, the germs and everything flies out as soon as you flush.
Well, it makes sense. And actually, in some ways, I'm a fastidious person. I think you'll agree with this in certain of my personal habits and grooming habits and etc. But you know what I never do? I never flush a fucking toilet at a truck stop, rest area, fast food place, whatever. Let the next guy deal with it. I'm fine.
Do you wash your hands?
Yes, I wash except...
Oh, no.
Oh, no. This goddamn bullshit that they have now with the fucking no paper towels. And I can understand when they used to have the cloth roll that, when it would go around the fifth time, you're like, I don't want to fucking do it, right? But paper towels, okay, you can recycle the shit. But I'm not doing that goddamn ridiculous fucking wall dryer thing. I will instead act like I'm camping and do the Purell thing or whatever, but I hate those fucking wall dryers, and they make so much noise. It's noise. But anyway, I digress. The point is, yes, so I don't flush fucking things like that. I try to stir up as little of the atmosphere in there as possible. I don't touch any of the doors. I'm very picky about where I actually sit, unless number 2 is an emergency, and then I have my chains of different gas establishments and or fast food organizations that I will pick first in my efforts to find a place to sit down if I'm on the road.
Which places do you pick?
Well, obviously Wendy's.
Why obviously?
Well, not only, and it depends on where I am, right? Sometimes, you have to rethink these things. But usually I find that Wendy's has a high level of cleanliness in their bathrooms, higher than other places. You're not going to get me to go to Clem's gas station on the fucking side of exit 96. I'm going to go for a major gas chain like a Pilot or a fucking shell or whatever the fuck. And it's got to be new. You can tell by the sign whether you want to go in the bathrooms or not. And so I try to stick with newer locations that are not too old, rest areas that I frequent on regular basis on normal trips, so I know what the fuck I'm dealing with, and disturb as little of the environment as possible. You don't want to stir up a lot of fucking air in there either way.
If you're going into a Wendy's, let's say, to use the bathroom, do you feel obligated to buy something?
Oh, no. Oh, no, I feel it. I've probably sent 2 of Dave Thomas's grandkids to fucking college. So, no, if I've stopped to get something to eat and I see that the line is too long and it's going to throw my fucking travel average off, I will just go take a piss and fucking go on down the road. I do not feel the need to stick around. If I can get right up to the counter and keep my travel average going, then I get a twofer. I get to piss and they get some money. If they've got 5 or 6 people standing there, or it looks like they might have somebody behind the counter that's not really up on the latest fucking procedures, I'm out of there. But as I mentioned before, I never stop at a fast food restaurant between 11:15 a.m. and 1:45 p.m. It's just on a trip that you're trying to make time on. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, what are you laughing at?
Just the anyway and then the grab of paper. I thought was fun.
Well, I got something I want to read you. I got another. See, this is all about the cult of Cornette listeners today. All about the people out there. It's all about the people, Gordon. I got an email from Vito. Last name withheld. The name is Vito, and I'm a longtime listener. Your stories help me get through the work week and especially get through such a shitty period of wrestling on TV. Me and my friends listen more to your podcast than we watch at this point, and every time we do try to watch, we end up turning it off. I have a buddy named Kev who I've known for decades, and he's been struggling with severe back pain since I've met him. He had an incident in 1992 that has never really healed, and when we hang out, he constantly complains about pain. Kev was a bafflingly great athlete before this, but at this point, he spends most of his time playing some video game, instead of being able to come out with the rest of us and play hoops. It's been tough to watch, so I used the discount you provided for Omax CryoFreeze and got, and I lost my place. Oh, and got some for him. I'd be a liar if I said he was up playing ball with us. I don't want you to lie, Vito. We aren't even playing during the pandemic, but he has let me know that it's made a huge difference. He hasn't felt this good in well over a decade, and it's made him want to get up and be more active. I can only hope that as it gets more safe for people to come together and meet, Kev can become a bit more active and get away from the video games before he ends up an outlaw mud show wrestling fan. Anyway, thanks a lot for the great podcast and the great product recommendations. And you know, it doesn't just have to be Vito and Kevin, folks. We can do the same fucking thing for you. We can save you money and save you pain at the same time on the insanely popular product here on the program, Omax CryoFreeze, the CBD, the pain relief roll-on that instantly relieves joint pain. We've talked about the roll-on, the sport cream. They also have now the CryoFreeze Advanced Joint Defense, the one-a-day supplement, a clinically proven ingredient called NEM and hemp-derived CBD that relieves joint discomfort and soreness in 7 days or less. So that instead of the rubbing this stuff on for the instant pain, you take these things and it will relieve it on an ongoing basis. Reduce aches and pains from sore muscles, joint overuse, aging. You know, Brian, I don't want to say that I'm old, but last week I walked past a cemetery. 2 guys ran after me with shovels. It was a shock. So for right now, folks, Omax is offering a limited time offer of 20% off their introductory pricing on Omax CryoFreeze supplements and free shipping. This discount also applies toward any product site-wide. Just go to omaxhealth.com. That's OMAX health.com and enter the code JCE and take advantage. 20% off and free shipping for just the people that are in this exclusive group of Cult of Cornette members and listeners. Once again, whether it's I love the sport cream. That's my favorite. I think you like the roll on. My mother-in-law likes everything except me. But now that, add this joint defense, the one a day to your vitamin and supplement routine. And that way, it's all about staying healthier here on the program. So anyway, don't let muscle soreness continue to be an excuse for not living an active lifestyle. Go to omaxhealth.com and feel relief faster and cheaper, because we know people. Did you hear we've got an update on the controversial episode of Sex Sent Me to the ER?
I didn't know it was controversial, the episode.
Well,
you're talking about the one with Darby Allin, I assume.
Yes, but we were talking about it here the other day on one of our programs. And by the way, if you don't know what we're talking about because you only listen to the experience, we're cross-pollinating these days. We talk about some of these things on the drive-through. Folks, I don't remember what I had to eat last night, so I can't keep straight what we talk about on what program. So get with program, listen to both programs. Get with program, listen to both programs. Anyway, we were talking about Darby Allin was on an episode of a reality program called Sex Sent Me to the ER, and he alleged, and you brought this to my attention with one of the viewer emails.
It was from Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
It was, all right, from Charlie in Starkville, your favorite viewer. Anyway, the alleged incident was he was some fucking 20-year-old dipshit. I guess, typecasting. He played himself in the reenactment. And the woman, it was an older, 40-ish, attractive, mature woman that was supposed to be his big ultimate fantasy. They go out in the woods. He's about to drive the old log in, and fucking they roll over on a goddamn, what was it, a beehive or a hornet's nest?
A beehive.
A beehive, because all those are always sitting right down on the ground where you can roll over them with your bare ass when you're boning in the woods. They roll over on a beehive. They're stung. They have to go to the emergency room. This is the premise of the theory, the story that Darby Allin set forth on Sex Has Sent Me to the ER. Well, it's been revealed, Brian, because I did question the authenticity of this, and I believe you mentioned that it's reality TV show, so therefore it's got to be bullshit. But it has now been confirmed that none other than Darby Allin has exposed his own business a second time. All the wrestlers can't wait to tell everybody wrestling's fake. Now they do something else. Can't wait to tell people that's fake as well. He said on a podcast, this was his reasoning for doing this program and how this came about, Brian. You haven't heard this at all.
I actually have heard a little bit of this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you anyway. So you,
okay.
You could have just lied. But anyway, folks out there in podcast land, Darby Allin went to the producers of a program called Sex Sent Me to the ER and gave them a story of this nature, that he was with this older woman in the woods and they rolled over on a beehive and they all got stung, and actually hired an actress off Craigslist and gave her the premise. So an actress off Craigslist. I mean, that was candid photography. I didn't think Craigslist was listing those actresses anymore, but maybe this was a while back, several years ago, before the crackdown. And lied to the producers of this TV show to get on this show because he needed money. He needed money. And they gave him $800. And this was part of the deal, and a nice hotel room. So basically for $800, and they flew him out to California for $800, a plane ticket and a nice hotel room, I guess at the fucking Holiday Inn Express or whatever. This idiot concocts this fucking story, then realizes he's going to need a fucking woman, finds one on Craigslist, goes through this whole thing, travels all the way across the continent and back to perpetrate this fucking thing because he needed money. Never in any fucking moment of that Mission Impossible like fucking fiasco, this goddamn contrived Rube Goldberg plot to make $800 fucking and sleep at the Holiday Inn Express, Never once did he just think, maybe I should just get a fucking job. Apparently, that never crossed his mind. I could use $800 about now. So, because he didn't profit from the plane ticket, that just got him there and back, and it was obviously a couple of days of his time. He did get to sleep in a nice hotel, and apparently that's a big deal to Darby Allin. You know, he gets to sleep in a nice hotel, but to get $800, I'm going to concoct this goddamn who shot John scenario. I'm going to go out there, then realize I've got to have a woman, so that had to eat into his, because I think it's Los Angeles. Those actresses on Craigslist, back in the fucking 80s, they were $250 an hour in LA. Those Craigslist actresses. So that ate into his fucking profits. And no guarantee of success on it. And he goes out, he does that for $800. For fuck's sake. Get a fucking job. Part-time. I'm sure someone would like something carried somewhere.
I can't blame him. It's a nice payoff for one taping. He's a young guy. Obviously, he had nothing going on. Trying to find a way to stay
obvious. Well, you are correct there. You have a firm grasp of the obvious. He had nothing fucking going on.
Here's about this stupid show.
I didn't need $800 in the fucking 70s when I was 20 years old, or early 80s, so bad that I would go to those links and concoct that fucking level of a goddamn to go on national TV and look like a complete fucking idiot. Go on, defend him. I'm waiting.
I don't think he did anything that wrong. I think it's a stupid show, just like Jerry Springer or any of these shows. He said, hey, you know what? I'm going to do this, get some money, have a great story I can laugh about for the rest of my life. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
That's frivolous. It's frivolousness.
How dare he fuck with the integrity of Sex Sent Me to the ER?
You know what? He worked those people. He lied to them. I wonder if you can be sued. They might ask for his money back. See, here would be another great Stephen P. News segue. He doesn't even have a spot on the program. 888-692-8084. They might ask for the money back because they find out he lied to them. And you know, the reality TV industry has to protect its integrity, even if wrestling has lost its.
If I can make an update on that segment we did on the drive-thru this past week, I was incorrect about something. I thought that it was Darby and this actress that he hired to play the older woman who was his fantasy that he had to take into the woods. I thought it was them in the reenactment because they looked so close to Darby and the actress. Apparently, those were two completely different actors. One playing the role of Darby and one playing the role of the actress, which is incredible. That means they found someone and said, we got to make this person look like Darby Allin. And he didn't look then like he looks now. So I was wrong about that, and I apologize for being incorrect.
So they were the real people that it really happened to, rather than the fake people that were reenacting it. But the real people that it really happened to were fake also, because it didn't happen at all.
So when you asked me how the woman looked and I said she had a nice body, I was talking about the actress in the reenactment, not the actress that Darby hired.
Oh, you were talking about not the actress, but the reenactress.
The reenactress, because she's the one that you saw topless from behind running in the woods.
God.
So I just want to clarify that. I
didn't see any of this at all, and it sounds like I got the better part of the deal. But that's you know what? If there are actors and reenactors, and there are actresses and reenactresses, I wonder if there are going to be wrestlers and re-wrestlers. And they can start. Well, I was about to say maybe they can start just having today's modern wrestlers actually reenact a great match from the past and do the same shit, so that at least we know the match will make sense, even if it's not performed as well.
Do you think the producers of the show know that people like Darby, and I'm assuming others as well, are scamming them with these ridiculous stories? I mean, Jerry Springer was in on the fact that Jamie Dundee was getting these outlaw guys to come up there and play different roles. Do you think the producers of Sex Sent Me to the ER are aware that people are like, oh, I can come up with a ridiculous sex story. I was in the woods and we rolled over a beehive and then The bee started chasing us down the road.
I would have a feeling that the producers of Sex Sent Me to the ER would probably think that anybody who would want to be on a program called Sex Sent Me to the ER and would want to publicly tell a story about sex sending them to the ER also would have a certain capacity to fucking lie their ass off to get on television. Because if you're that fucking desperate to be on TV, you would probably fabricate as well as fornicate. That sounds like something Reverend Al Sharpton would say. And you will not only fabricate, but you will fornicate.
I had a friend of mine who actually did have to go to the ER because of sex, now that I think about it.
I thought you were going to say I had a friend of mine that actually did fornicate with Al Sharpton.
No.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, you're all right. Give it up then. What the fuck
I
happened
just
to your
remembered
friend?
this story.
Oh, sure you did. Now,
did.
you pinky swear to me.
I pinky swear. My friend...
Don't try to work me, boy.
My friend Andy, his older brother, whose name I will not use, years ago, the story was... And I'm going to try to say this in the least perverted way as possible.
All right, then I'll translate it into more vulgar language.
He was with a girl, and she was on top, and she was going up and down, and she went a little too high up and came down right on top of his pogo stick.
Oh.
And that sent him to the ER. That was the story. Yeah.
When you get one of those female jackhammers that just insists on fucking beating you up with their fucking crotch, and they're going up and down... No, it's personal with them. It's like, I'm going to hurt you, mother. They're popping up and down so fucking hard. They're like trying to drive that goddamn cylinder into the fucking money pit on fucking Oak Island. But they go up too far and fucking your friend springs free, and then it right back down and you're smashed. Now, the fucking smash flat is bad enough, but the fucking... Like when you used to fucking catch a pass with a basketball when it jammed your middle finger. Holy fuck. Yes, that could send you to the hospital.
So there's a legitimate Sex Sent Me to the ER scenario.
Well, anyway, speaking along this same line or this same vein, I thought it might be interesting if we contrast, Brian, our two living areas. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky. You're up there in the New York metropolitan area, which, extends to the woods and the wilds of New Jersey, where you're at, where the polo ponies roam free. And I'm wondering,
they certainly do.
Yeah, you still get the New York City TV stations, right? Because you are an affluent suburb. All right. So you watch your 6 o'clock news, your local news on television.
Yeah.
And I assume that, it's you have your favorite station that you might watch. You don't, flip around a lot. You just keep with the same station because you like those personalities.
For the news, I watch CBS, Channel 2.
Would this feature that I'm about to tell you about that I just saw on my Louisville TV news, would this feature have played on the New York City TV news at 6 o'clock for 3 minutes? They had a feature where they interviewed this woman who told the story of the police report she made when she and her young child were in Cherokee Park here in Louisville, and she looked over, and standing down the way was an elderly gentleman with his pants around his ankles, masturbating furiously in the park. In the middle of broad daylight. This was 3.5 minutes on my local 6 o'clock news. Brian Last, I'm going to tell you to be honest now. As long as you've been spent around New York City, would that happening be about as common as a report of somebody eating a bagel in Times Square?
No, I wouldn't say it's as common, but every now and then we may get 2 minutes of a guy on the subway taking his dick out. That's happened. And then now that they have smartphones, people snap pictures, so you get these weird photos of like the guy trying to pretend like he's looking away, but he's trying to cover his dick, which is out of his pants. He's on the subway. And then other people, sometimes there's videos of people confronting him, like the woman that he's masturbating to. Like, what are you doing, you sicko? And we get that. Yeah.
I just saw that and thought of you, a guy jacking off in the park. Because I said no, fair. because here's the thing. It just like this, it was like they were approaching this like this was the most unheard of thing. And you know, I've seen those parks up there. I've seen those alleyways. I haven't seen the subway. I've seen it on television. I ain't gonna see it in person. But I know what goes on up there. I'm just thinking if this was New York and you tried to put this on the fucking 6 o'clock news, because you've got 150 murders and kidnappings and arsons and robberies and assaults and all that stuff and everything. But this guy, she was like, I saw, and I couldn't believe it. It sounded like the Ray Stevens, you know, the streak. And he was right there amongst the canned peas, and he give Ethel a free show. Anyway, she freaks out. What are you doing? And she called the cops, and they sent a goddamn reporter to the exact spot so they could interview her in the park exactly where it happened. We don't allow this pervert stuff go on in Louisville, Kentucky, by God. We do something about it. You know, he wasn't jacking it in San Diego. He was jacking it in Louisville.
In the park.
He's gonna pull it down on 7th Street. He's a jacking it. He's gonna whack it with his hands and feet. He's a jacking it. He's gonna jack it down at 4th Street Live and blow his greasy goo all the way to 3rd Street Dive. He's a jacking it. See, now people that know Louisville geography, that will be fucking hilarious. Travis Bickle will get a kick out of that.
All right.
Jacking it. And now, last time I fucking did that on the show, people sent me 742 tweets of the clip from South Park. Jacking it. He's gonna jack it down in San Diego. All right. Anyway, you said, speaking of jacking off in public, apparently Randy Orton and Tommaso Ciampa now. You told me you had tweets that we could read. They're mad at each other.
Well, there is a little bit of apparently an online feud. Who knows how much of it's real, how much of it's a work? I guess time will tell. What do you know of this before I read you anything that we have here?
I know that Randy Orton said something about enjoyed your leg slapping show, and Tommaso said that Randy's matches put him to sleep. So that's about.
All right. Well, here's the Twitter exchange with a little added bonus. On June 8th, which was Monday, so the day after the NXT In Your House, I was about to say pay-per-view, but I guess just spectacular. Randy Orton tweeted out, heard NXT TakeOver In Your House was great. Slapping my leg for you guys. Sincerely, #leg slap.
Now, was his name mentioned? Was this apropos of anything?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of. I didn't watch the event, but I doubt that all of a sudden in the middle of the event they said anything disparaging about Randy Orton. I think this kind of came out of nowhere. To which Tommaso Ciampa on Twitter at Blackheart, his name is Blackheart, on Twitter at NXT Ciampa, tweeted back, my daughter has been having trouble sleeping. Luckily, I found a remedy. Randy Orton matches. Better than NyQuil. Sincerely, #an entire locker room who busted their asses.
Well. I don't. Now I've had a stroke. No.
You like both of these guys. Let me just start by saying that.
Well, no. I'm a fan of Tommaso's work. I can understand where his personality can grate on those. One time we were in fucking New York at the Hammerstein Ballroom, and it was a 2:00 in the afternoon show, and we had done TV till midnight in Baltimore the night before. And me and the director and the fucking Mark Davis, the editor, and some of the crew had then gone to New York City. And by the time we got in a hotel and got to bed, it was 4:30, and we were up at 7:00, and we're back over at the building to set up because it was an internet pay-per-view, and blah blah blah. So me and Hunter Delirious was with us, and we were all like fucking sleep deprived. And what the fuck? I don't even know who Tommaso was working with. But it was I believe, for the TV title, and we just said, do a 15-minute Broadway or whatever, which it wasn't set the world on fire, but it at the same time, it get the job done. But he came in, he said, well, I think that really just fucking sucks. I said, all right. I said, because we're both so tired and we have to actually kind of agree with you that it's not fucking great. We won't fire you over telling us our shit fucking sucks. What do you want to do? And he actually came up with something that was better than that. So we did it. But I laughed at after that. I said, if we hadn't been so fucking sleepy, I'd have probably just fired you first. Yeah, they got the whole thing fucking sucks. But anyway, so he will just fucking come out and tell somebody they suck. But I have to say, Randy was not right to. You're on Twitter calling attention to the fact that something's phony, which I guess that fucking horse has left the barn anyway. But unless. Maybe there's something we don't know, but unless somebody had said something to him first that he took wrong, I don't know why he volunteered to knock their whole fucking show. That seems in bad form.
Well, there was a reply by Randy Orton to Tommaso Ciampa's reply to his tweet. Looks like I hurt the feeling of the self-appointed locker room leader of a wrestling school.
Oh, Jesus.
Let me know what time leg slap class starts so I can take my game to the next level.
Oh!
By the way, before you respond to that, there was also a reply to Tommaso Ciampa, or at least to Randy Orton's comment, by Randy Orton's wife. She replied to Randy. Wait. What were we going to say?
Wait a minute. Now, Randy Orton's wife replied to who? Let's get this completely straight here.
When Randy Orton made that comment, his wife replied to Randy, saying, isn't that the same guy who took credit for all those, quote, great matches that he, in caps, didn't put together?
Okay. I guess this is too much inside baseball for me, but what matches would Tommaso Ciampa have taken credit for that Randy Orton's wife would know anything about? And why is Randy Orton's wife commenting on the wrestling business unless she's in it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously the matches with Gargano and Ciampa were, I believe the agent was Shawn Michaels who put them together with those guys. Maybe that's what she's referring to. I don't know.
Well, but see, if she's going to play with if she's going to run with the big dog, she needs to get up off the porch. If she's going to be playing with the big boys, she needs to make a fucking point to people to understand. Secondly, why is Randy Orton's wife making a point about the wrestling business? Wives should be withheld from the wrestling business fucking inner turmoil unless they're in the wrestling business. I got to call this one, but Orton, did Ciampa respond to leg slap class, wrestling school, et cetera, et cetera? Certainly to God, he couldn't have let that lay.
It appears that was the last tweet that he has issued, which of course was June 8th. There are rumors that Vince McMahon may not have been very happy about this because these guys are building up a match that will not be taking place.
Well, that's nothing. I was going to ask is they're not ever going to wrestle, are they? It would be great if they were.
I mean, the story was when Ciampa resigned, he specifically did it to not go to the main roster. He did not want to be anywhere but NXT, and we could certainly understand why.
Well, no, but I understand. Over and above creative, I mean, it'd be ridiculous if he was young and healthy and didn't want to go to the main roster, which, as we've mentioned, one of these days, Triple H would be running anyway, whatever the fuck. But to make millions of dollars, he'd be an idiot. But with the knee surgeries and the neck surgeries, and he's a fucking genetic beast anyway, and that he looks so good and he's trained so hard to overcome all that, but he ain't starting with a brand new body. So I don't blame him for not wanting to go to the main roster just for the schedule of where he can do what makes him stand out, not as many times a month as you would have to do it on the main roster. He has better matches than he'd have on the main roster in NXT, but he don't have as many of them. But in this case, fucking Randy Orton slayed his ass on Twitter, and if he does not make a comeback, whether they said fucking don't or not, I would not let a motherfucker get the last word on me with that. I'll just say that. Fuck it. Because Randy Orton won that one, and Randy's wife needs to stay out of wrestling business.
I don't know if this is the time or the place to say this, and I'm not taking sides here. However, I do think overall there is way too much thigh slapping in professional wrestling right now, to the point where it's noticeable. Like, it's one thing if you hide it well. It's one thing if it's not constant and nonstop throughout a match. but there's way too much right now in wrestling.
Well, yes, that's the point I was made. The worst thing is it calls people's attention to the fact of how they're making their sound effects. So it wasn't good on a variety of levels, but they should quit fucking doing it. And that's, unfortunately, it's a generational thing where a lot of those guys will do that because they think that's what, they need to do.
Was there a locker room leader in OVW? I mean, the idea of, you call them a locker room leader of a wrestling school. Was there a locker room leader in OVW?
Well, yes, it was Danny Davis and Rip Rogers. Danny Davis was the leader of the whole company. Rip Rogers was the leader of the training program. I was the booker. Nick Dinsmore and Rob Conway at one point were the most experienced guys. Then later on, for a while, guys like Cena, when they were fixing to leave, they'd stepped up, and there was guys that would be given responsibilities, whether they drove the ring trailer or not, et cetera, et cetera. But there was not, there were guys at Nova when he came in, he'd already been somewhat of a veteran, and he, for a while till it went to his head, stepped up. But there wasn't like, there was no need for one locker room leader. They weren't doing fucking wrestler's court, and it wasn't a goddamn, So no, yes and no. There were several guys because of their experience, their talent, and their tenure there that, the other guys would look up to, but there wasn't like an Undertaker role in.
Well, when was the first time you heard that, locker room leader? Was that a term ever used in Memphis or Mid-South or anywhere before WWF?
Well, the position was there, but, like locker room leader, team captain, whatever is kind of modern terminology for the same thing. It was the guy that you went to, whether he's the booker or not. He was figured in the territory. He had the stature. He had the history, Lynn Rossi in Nashville, or a fucking, any longtime fixture, that was still on top and was a money guy. Bobo Brazil in Detroit for the Sheik would have been a respected guy in the locker room. But there wasn't,
What about like Ernie Ladd when he wasn't booking in Mid-South?
When he wasn't booking, he wouldn't be the locker room leader of a specific territory because he was in and out as a star. He was a respected veteran that was a fly-in guy that, I'm sure a lot of the guys tripped over themselves, or they should have, to get to be the one to pick him up at the airport so they could ride in a car with Ernie Ladd and get some wisdom. Or, guys would obviously defer to him or ask him things in the locker room, but it wasn't like that he was in one territory. He was the man, like a Danny Hodge was for Leroy McGurk for years. Whether he was the booker or not, he was the fucking guy.
Well, that's why
Jackie Fargo in Memphis, etc.
That's why I specified with Mid-South, just because the idea, let's say there was someone who had an issue with the office and they didn't know how to go about confronting Bill Watts or whoever, they had to speak to. Would they go to Ernie? Was Ernie like a guy that they would go to because they knew he had the relationship?
Oh, yeah. If you had some question like that, yeah, you would definitely, because you knew not to go to Grizzly Smith because he was the official stooge. But yes, a guy like Ernie, you would ask something like that, or you just keep your mouth shut and be too scared to say anything. But the whole, there didn't used to be, there were cliques as far as office cliques, and it was the office and the boys. There weren't cliques amongst the boys in the old days because, for one thing, there weren't enough boys. Fucking full-time territory, except like the Carolinas when they ran 2 and 3 shows a night, there was a lot of guys there. But, the average territory, you had 20 guys, so 10 in each locker room on a regular basis. There wasn't room to have fucking cliques. Been like, everybody having a fucking belt. Some people, to make enough members of a group, you'd had to join 2 groups. It just, everything is screwy about wrestling has magnified over the years.
Would problems like this have popped up if there was Twitter in the 80s?
I know, because it would have necessitated the boys exposing the business to do shit like that. If you had that's the thing. If Randy Orton and Tommaso Ciampa in the 80s were both working for the WWF, then they would see each other in person on a regular basis because they'd be in the locker room. So this shit would have been said personally to each other or behind each other's backs in the locker room if they didn't want to make anything out of it. Or if they did, then one guy would say something to the other guy, but then there would be a fight. That would be expected. So maybe now it's because, well, I say it and just make a sly-ass comment because, you know, I don't see him, he don't see me, and, you know, whatever the fuck, I don't know. But they wouldn't have done it publicly because nobody would. Just because the technology has been invented in the last 30 years to show everybody in the world your vacation pictures or the pictures of you out at the lake in your boat doesn't mean that the guys then would have done that because they would have been exposing the business. They would not have had pictures taken for public consumption of them and their fucking rivals or their enemies in a boat on the lake or enjoying a fucking night out at a restaurant or vacation or whatever the fuck. They wouldn't have been broadcasting even if they could do it on radio. I know guys in a variety of territories could call local radio stations, get on the goddamn radio anytime they wanted. But they didn't use that to fucking snipe at fucking guys in the business about personal shit that exposed the business. That's the thing. It's not just that the technology has changed. The boys have changed. They don't respect it enough. They're not taught to respect it enough. So, no, none of this shit would have happened in public in the 80s. There might have been more fights in private. There definitely would have been more divorces with more cell phones and cell cameras and all that other stuff. A lot more guys would have gone to jail. But it was the character of the talent then that did not just blab and expose the business to every goddamn Tom, Dick, and Harry. Including your next door neighbors, just because they live next door to you didn't mean you were going to go to them and explain to them that the business was a work. If you liked them, you might not want to argue with them too much if they said something, but they kind of should get the Iggy, the unspoken Iggy, don't fucking knock my business, or the spoken one, don't knock my business. I had to do that a few times with people that I've interacted with in my private life in Charlotte. I'd say, don't knock my business. I take it very serious. Oh, I'm sorry. And they wouldn't say anything else. That didn't mean I had to go tell them, oh, boy, wait till you see this fucking finish we're going to do at the Charlotte Coliseum Saturday night with the Rock and Roll Express. Boy, I thought about this one forever. No, if anything, they were wishing me good luck at the Coliseum on my way out the door.
Okay,
that's the way it needed to be.
Similar question. Brett and Sean, we've talked a lot about them just recently on the drive-thru. If when everything was heating up around Montreal, and of course how everything went afterwards with them making fun of Brett on TV and all the personal feelings and comments about sunny days and hair-ripping locker room brawls, if there was Twitter then, do you think the same thing applies? They wouldn't have exposed the business? They wouldn't have been unprofessional on there?
No, Sean would have been as unprofessional on Twitter as he was everywhere else, and would have done that and wouldn't have given a shit. And then Brett would have tried to fucking joust back with him and fucking ended up doing the same thing because he didn't want to fucking put him over like Champa put over Randy Orton. Yeah, so yeah, but that was the 90s. I'm talking about before modern times when everybody went crazy and started to think they're a goddamn entertainer instead of a wrestler. And well, they're right. They are entertainers and not wrestlers, but that's not preferable. But yeah, they would have, but I'm not any of the guys that I was in a fucking locker room with, you know, when I was full time in a fucking business they wouldn't have thought of it. And it's a lack of respect and a lack of teaching the respect these days. And just because they think that the guys today think that just because everybody knows that the business is worked, that there should be no pretense whatsoever in anything they do that they are who they are purported to be in public and on television. And that's why most guys don't get over. Because you see a goddamn psychopathic supposed murderer cuddling a fucking furry ferret on his fucking Instagram and talking about how he's going to bake a cake and give it to the fucking orphan children. Fuck, he ought to be talking about boiling children in fucking oil and giving it to the fucking ferret. Anyway, speaking of fucking pricks, I've got to bring this up. Hold on here. This is another thing that we discussed on one of the programs. I have an email from guess who?
Who?
Thank you for feeding that in. Charlie in Starkville, Mississippi.
Oh, so he's a real person.
Well, either that or he's the same person that's impersonating Charlie from Starkville when you fucking. But anyway, we had the conversation about Darby Allin, and one of the things I said, he's fucking this woman in the woods and rolls over on a beehive. He couldn't even spring for a fucking Red Roof Inn, right? Now we find out he was needing money to begin with. But I say he's such a bum, he takes his woman out in the woods instead of springing for a Red Roof Inn. You mentioned, what are you? Goddamn, you own stock in the Red Roof Inn? I said, no, it's cheap, quality, affordable lodging at a good price and fucking somewhat clean, the cleanliness. I said, that's why I mentioned the Red Roof. Well, Charlie writes in, hi, Jim. You are absolutely right. I'm a Red Roof Inn guy. I had to travel a good bit for my work in my late 20s and early 30s, and the Red Roof was always a solid option, well above Motel 6 and the horrible Econo Lodge. The Red Roof is comparable to a family-style restaurant like Chili's, whereas Motel 6 is more akin to a McDonald's at 11 p.m. The Econo Lodge is more like asking a crackhead for a sandwich at 4 a.m. Thanks again, Charlie. So see, you have it right there. Red Roof right in the middle. Not too hot, not too cold, just right in the middle. Good if you don't want to fucking fuck some cougar in the woods and roll over on a beehive, or if you're Charlie from Starkville going on a business trip. But I thought since you weren't going to work one in from Charlie on this show, I'd get that in.
All right. Well, you got it in.
Yeah. You're thrilled, aren't you? Well, let me tell you what else you need to get in. You need to get the new Weed Whacker from Manscaped straight up your fucking nose. That's where it needs to go. Have you heard about this? Have you read about this, ladies and gentlemen, out there in TV land and podcast land and radio land? I'll just completely ixnay Brian out of this altogether. A new Manscaped product. You have been able to have your pubes and your bung hole slicker than cum on a gold tooth. You've been able to trim a wide variety of places on your body. You've been able to have lotions and potions and pH balanced wipes to make those parts look and smell enjoyable. But now, the final frontier of personal grooming has been attacked and conquered by the folks at Manscaped. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. Let me say that again, right this time. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. Take a look in the mirror. Brian, you know I look in a variety of places all the time around my body to make sure that because I'm old. I've mentioned before I'm old, and I want to make sure nothing's going wrong. And when I look up my nose in the mirror, what do you think I see? It looks like goddamn redwood forest. And not the Gulf Stream waters. This nose was not made for you and me in this condition. That's why I use the Weed Whacker, and I stick it right up there, and you can hear it. You can hear those nasty old nose hairs being whacked off right at the base. Proprietary skin-safe technology that they use with all of their stuff. You can't nick, you can't snag, it doesn't even tug. It's a 9,000 RPM motor-powered 360-degree rotary dual-blade system, intelligently contoured design to enhance the trimming experience, waterproof, and the only nose hair trimmer on the market with a powerful and rechargeable lithium-ion battery that lasts for up to 90 minutes of use. And as we've mentioned before, if it takes you more than 90 minutes to trim your nose hair, you have a serious situation and possibly need a contract with the Ringling Brothers Circus. I mean, you could go around and you could do the whole family in 90 minutes. If you had 6 kids, hold them down, stick it up the left side, stick it up the right side, you're fucking done.
What happens to a wrestler who has cauliflowered ears with ear hair?
Oh, my God. I guess it would grow toward the inside.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, well, no wonder most people that end up with cauliflower ears also slowly go mad.
Is that true?
Would be where
Bruno Sammartino may want to have a word with you, Jim.
Well, thankfully, he won't be able to now. Because elsewise, he'd have kicked my ass. But anyway, Manscaped once again making whacking your weeds a time to look forward to. Maximum confidence while providing hygiene. Folks, 79% of available partners, spouses, partners, and significant others that were polled admitted that long nose hair is a major turnoff. And I'd like to have the phone numbers and addresses of the other 21% because they're up for anything. So, folks, it's time to upgrade your Manscaped routine. Get the Weed Whacker, and that way every single one of your orifices, from your nose to your toes, from your asshole to appetite, will be groomed, slick, shaved, smelling good, and properly maintained. Manscaped.com. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code JCEWW. See, it's for Jim Cornette Experience, Weed Whacker. Took me a while to figure that out. JCEWW is the code at manscaped.com. Save 20% and free shipping. Holy jumping shitballs. All right, what else we got going on here? What do you keep laughing at me?
Jumping shitballs.
Well, I'm telling you. I got another one. What?
I want to hear where this one's going to go.
Well, no, this one's going, it's a good place. It's a positive. It's very positive. Peter writes, "Hi, Jim. I hope all is well. I'm a 45-year-old man living in Maine who was born and raised in New Orleans, or Nolans. My earliest recollection of wrestling was my dad taking me to the Municipal Auditorium to see Mid-South Wrestling. There are a few things I remember about those events, but the one thing I remember most was seeing the dog. My dad had to hold me because when JYD came out, the entire balcony would shake. And believe me, if you've been in that building, ladies and gentlemen, at the age of it, the balcony shaking was scary. I don't remember at the time if he came out to Another One Bites the Dust. He was. But I remember everyone would be dancing. It's hard to explain how huge JYD was to today's wrestling fan because I can't think of a wrestler today that would get that type of reaction. It's not even close. To me, JYD was our Black Superman. Thank you for your time." Well, thank you for your email, Peter.
And for the record, depending on how old he is and when he went, there was a time in 1983 where it wasn't Another One Bites the Dust, it was Atomic Dog.
Oh, God, that's right. But thankfully he went back because I didn't think it had the oomph.
No, I think it hurt him, actually.
Yeah, it was iconic. You didn't need to change the presentation. But anyway, nevertheless, the point being, I guess maybe I can try to understand why that the younger fans can't understand what we're talking about and why we just piss on and poo-poo so much, including the crowd reactions and saying guys aren't over. When people are yelling and they're chanting, "This is awesome," and "This is awesome," and holy shit. And so they haven't actually seen what it's like when people are legitimately losing their minds over somebody. And you can watch it on tape and you see it, but you can't experience it when it's on tape. And I mean, we still have all of the current people that'll, current people, as opposed to the past people. Current fans will pass the tapes around and say, "Look at those people going berserk in Shelby, North Carolina," or whatever, in 1986, but still without being in the middle of it. And you kind of got it. You went to some Smoky Mountain Wrestling stuff when you were young, but you still weren't even around for the fucking first run of that. But
no, but remember, too, I got to really experience it. Our group, we had to get a police escort out of Louisville.
Well, yeah.
Because the fans, even though Tommy Rich was in the middle of the ring, bleeding a gusher, getting beaten by all the heels while the baby faces were handcuffed to the cage, eventually the fans got tired of yelling for Tommy and turned all their venom on us, on a section of fans cheering for the Smoky Mountain guys.
Because you were the only fans in the Louisville Gardens of fucking 40 people that came up on a bus from Smoky Mountain Fan Week cheering for the heels that were killing all these people, and they were going to go out of their fucking minds. Yeah. But it's hard, I know, to explain, but try to imagine. Holy shit, chanting over and over isn't people losing their minds over something. It's losing their minds over a big bump or a spot, or boy, did you see that guy fall off the cliff, or wow, look at that car wreck if we're watching NASCAR, or holy shit, the backboard shattered, or whatever the fuck. But the people, if you chant something, you're in on it. You're chanting something to get the crowd in on something that you're doing. You're not focusing your full attention on what's going on and living and dying by what's going on in the ring, as was traditional for almost 100 years until they decided they could do wrestling a better way. I've said it so many times, there didn't used to be quiet spots in matches. If they were down on the fucking mat in a headlock, unless you were in a high school gym somewhere, in front of 300 or 400 people, if you were at a regular show, the fucking people were either cheering for the babyface to squeeze the fucking headlock harder or taunting the heel for not being able to get out of the headlock. And of course, the guys in the ring were helping that out by working the headlock, and we're just laying there. But there was not any quiet spots in the match. It was steady noise from the people that were invested and involved. They weren't just waiting to see moves. They didn't care if the babyface did any fucking moves as long as he won. If he punched the fucking heel and knocked him out in one punch and boom and walked off from him, that would get a huge pop. But if the heel did the same thing to the babyface, people would either boo, riot, attack him, or want their money back. They didn't care how great the match was as long as the fucking babyface won and got even with the heel for whatever the fuck he had done. But they were invested in that story, that quest, that the match that they were having, to the point where they were making noise pretty steadily throughout the whole thing. And then when something big happened, the roof would come off the place. Not in every single match, although once again, Southern crowds were always great because they liked wrestling matches and they'd make some fucking noise even from the preliminaries. But when you got with the main event guys like JYD in New Orleans, it literally was people going batshit crazy, loving somebody, coming to the fucking ring. They were jumping up and down. They were cheering. Men, women, children, all ages, whatever. And the same thing when the heel came out, it was genuine hate. Not just heat, but genuine hate. We hate this motherfucker. We want to see him injured and hospitalized. And then when you had a hot finish going and the people were really going insane, then you saw people going berserk and they would throw babies in the air if the babyface won, or if the heat got too bad and the heel got too much heat and a really raw fuck finish and they were mad at him, that's when they would quiet down. And old Dennis Conde, the first thing he warned me about in Louisiana, he said, watch the silent heat. That was the silent heat was what a crowd would do when they'd got to the point where they were so fucking mad that they stopped yelling and basically they were looking around for shit to come in the ring with. Silent heat was when all that stopped and somebody could very well get fucking cut or stabbed or fucking jumped or whatever, and you need to get the fuck out of there. Which is only topped by complete silence of shock and astonishment when Koloff pinned Bruno, but that was in class by itself. But I'm just saying, that's what a lot of the old fans and the old performers miss about the shows today, that the young wrestlers can't understand it because they weren't able to experience it. They just see it on tape. The young fans can't, same reason, is people are just not into this shit anymore. As far as legitimately, passionately, emotionally invested. I used to tell the guys in Ring of Honor, slow down. You don't need to do so much because they can't scream any louder. But that's what they were doing. They will yell and scream and urge you on to do more moves. But nobody's living or dying on who wins or loses the fucking match. And nobody legitimately is mad and hates anybody in the fucking match. And nobody is legitimately loves or admires or respects to the level of Jesus Christ, Santa Claus, and the fucking New Orleans Saints, they're top baby faces. Sure, they like them, and boy, they get real upset when you fucking knock them on the fucking internet. But I wonder if anybody would actually goddamn want to knife their opponents. So we can never replicate this again. It's another one of the things we've lost. But until you were able to feel that kind of emotion in wrestling, and boy, when you go out in a building like the Charlotte Coliseum and there's 12,000 of them, and they either love the fuck out of you or they're screaming for your fucking skin, that was atmosphere. We can't replicate it. We're never going to get it back, and that's what I miss, and that's why I poo-poo a lot of this shit, because, you know, what the fuck? Without that level of commitment from the people, you're just going out and fucking doing moves. We never got the sense that we were going out and performing moves for people when we were doing it. I never did. The Midnight Express never did. Most people I worked with in the ring never did. We're going out and having a match, and these people are fucking hooked up in it, but it wasn't predicated on the moves. It was predicated on the concept. We're going to beat the shit out of this fucking guy for a while. And then the boys would do a variety of devastating looking moves to him. But the concept was we're beating the shit out of this fucking guy.
Let me just jump in a couple points, but one specifically. Some people are going to hear this and go, well, come on, Cornette. Everyone knows it's fake now. Everyone knows it's fake. You can't expect people to believe in it. And that's not really what it's about, because as I've always said, I always question what percentage of these audiences thought it was all on the up and up. It's about losing yourself in it as much as it is about thinking it's all real, correct?
Yeah, well, almost. Quite a bit. There was some element to the fact that when it was possible for human beings to believe that this was real, which up until the fucking 90s or so, there were definitely, and I've had interaction with many of them, there was some people that still believed everything. And remember I told you that fucking security guard at the Norfolk Scope at the Ring of Honor show in 2013 said, I saw that. He had been working security there for 40 years, since the days of Wahoo and fucking Valentine, right? And he was talking to me. He said, I remember when you guys used to come and Wahoo used to go down to I think it was the boathouse in Virginia Beach, and he'd hit those guys with chops and they'd fly over the fucking tables. He said, I just watched that documentary they had on TV last year on Learning Channel about how it's all fake. And it was a revelation to this guy in 2012. But the point is, yes, there were some people that believed it and that helped. But more importantly, it was because of the way it was presented and the way that the guys came off. And yes, now that it's just been so overexposed and overanalyzed, and you can get every fucking, detail about how the business has worked, you can't recreate that atmosphere because it's just lost. And that's to our detriment. And that's why I've often questioned, why do we have wrestling anymore? Why do you have matches anymore? If you're not trying to make people believe you're really having a fucking fight, there's no reason to do it. And really, that's my overriding prevailing opinion. However, you can still make some people believe in you. Brock Lesnar does. He may be Freddie Faker in the WWE, but nobody wants to fuck with him, because he really can fuck you up, and they know that. Well, a lot of the guys used to be like that. That's where the guys in Mid-South Wrestling subsisted on that, because in Mid-South Wrestling, even if you knew wrestling was fake, you weren't going to tell Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Steve Dr. Death Williams, Ernie Ladd, Nikolai Volkov, etc. So that's when the Midnight Express and I came along. They said, well, we can tell you you're fake, and we can beat you up too. That's why we had so much heat. But it just...
But, we started this talking about Junkyard Dog, and we could talk about you in the Carolinas. And I think one of the big things that has been taken out of wrestling that makes people not invest so much in the wrestlers. I mean, people are into the people behind the wrestlers. They're not really into the wrestlers so much.
Yeah.
Junkyard Dog did local promos each week on TV, and people started to believe in him and his words. How effective would the Midnight Express and you have been? You guys still would have been effective if you never did a local promo or never did any promos on TBS. That element of wrestling is gone. They don't have these guys out there talking right to the camera, talking right to the people at home, saying things that people either believe in or really want to see you get your ass kicked. There are people who knew wrestling wasn't legitimate and still wanted to see you get your ass kicked in the 1980s because of those promos, and that's gone.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because when you mentioned JYD's promos, the reason, and you said now the people are more interested in the folks behind the character, right? Is the way you put it, or the person behind the wrestler.
Yeah.
There was no difference then. There was no person behind JYD except for JYD. At least not that anybody could ever talk to or see. And actually, goddamn, he said the same shit in the locker room he said on promos. So did Hacksaw Butch Reed. When the babyface and the heels were together, he and Dog would sit on the other sides of the locker room in a friendly way, but on opposite sides of the locker room, cutting promos in each other. And Butch is like, you better quit selling them Wolf tickets. I'll have to come over there. You know, whatever the fuck. And then they do the same thing on fucking promos. I'll beat the black off of you, JYD. They were who they were supposed to be. And that's the fucking difference. These guys have somehow come under the delusion that they are not who they're supposed to be, that they're who they really are. And nobody gives a fuck. Let me tell you, nobody gives a fuck for 95% of you if they knew who you really were. Because most of you are a bunch of boring, bland fucks that play video games instead of chase pussy and have no idea how to fucking make your way around the world. So that's the thing. We don't pay to see fucking or get excited about seeing normal fucking people. Ned from the mailroom doesn't get to star in a TV show and people don't buy his t-shirts. If you want to be somebody on television, be a star, be an athlete, be a fucking celebrity, movie star, whatever the fuck, be somebody. And if you're going to be somebody, don't play somebody, be somebody. Then you might be more over than the rest of the pack here. But as I said, we can't recapture that feeling because we've told them too much. We fucked up. That's why I've said all along that this would end badly. Now it's the guys going out and doing dangerous stunts so people will cheer the moves and the falls instead of the individuals. But you can still make people believe somewhat in you, i.e. MJF, i.e., as we mentioned, and we'll talk about here in a second, FTR, at least picking up a turd by the clean end on All Elite Wrestling television. But don't tell me that all these people are going crazy and berserk and all these guys are so over because I've seen it and it ain't happening and it ain't going to again because we shit on all that and we threw it away. But when you see people jumping up and down and fucking willing to go to jail to get the heel, or as I've mentioned before, that time at the Louisville Gardens when the woman went into labor and was on the stretcher and would not let them take her to the hospital until she saw whether Bill Dundee beat Jerry Lawler, that's when you're over. So I ain't impressed.
But to my earlier point, one of the big things missing from wrestling, which gets people over, are promos, local promos and just generic promos for a national audience. The other thing is, in terms of the actual matches, there's nothing against high spots. I mean, if you go back far enough, the flying tackle was a high spot. It's about how you apply them and when you apply them. You have a lot of people now who go to wrestling shows to see great matches, not to see matches between individual people that they can lose themselves in. And when you have a style of match, which is just spot, and you can make the argument, well, that's what that audience wants, so it works for them. If it's just spot, that's what they're reacting to. They're reacting to the match. They're reacting and chanting, this is awesome, to what's happening in the match. But there's nothing like being in a crowd when a babyface finally gets up after getting their ass kicked for a while and throws a punch and the whole crowd, woof, whatever that sound is that everyone makes. Like being in the middle of that, that's a feeling. I mean, when you're in the crowd, you can feel it. I can't even imagine what that's like in the ring when you're throwing those punches and you hear that crowd. But it's the style of wrestling. They've taken local promos and promos out of wrestling. Everything is now just about the match.
And you were right then when they that's the match they give the people because they think that's the match that those people want, and that's the match that those people want. That's just not the match that all those people who aren't there wanted. So if the only thing you serve at your restaurant is a shit sandwich, the only customers that you're going to get is people with a taste for shit.
Yeah. That's a nice
nice way to put it,
yes.
Well, folks, I'll tell you what. Father's Day is coming up, and you don't want to feed your dad shit. Therefore, get him some Omaha Steaks.
That's right.
That's right. We're going from shit to steaks here, folks. Omaha Steaks, 100% American grain-finished beef, naturally aged at least 21 days for the ultimate in tenderness, juiciness, and flavor. Twice in the last week, we have had their fillets here at the castle, and last night, I had 2 of their burger patties on the same bun. I'm economizing. I was cutting my carbs, so I had a double burger on the same bun. But Omaha Steaks is not just steaks. It's steaks, chicken, pork, burgers, easy-to-make meals, desserts. They've got a potatoes au gratin you bake and the whole thing. All kinds of stuff. And oh, God dang it, the apple turnovers or apple tarts or apple whatever, they're good, whatever the fuck. And did I mention bacon? Applewood smoked steak cut bacon, 8 slices per pound. It's as thick as my finger. Omaha Steaks, the perfect Father's Day gift because dads want steak, not another tie or a gift card or whatever the fuck that you weirdos in the family might want to buy him besides steak. So, what? I'm being honest. What men want steak.
That's
steak right. And food, burgers, chicken, bacon, delivered to your door.
It's not just men, though. I'll tell you, I have a little bit of an Omaha Steak problem right now. In that, as I told you, I ordered it for my dad for Father's Day, and he got it yesterday. It came earlier than I anticipated because I jumped the gun and I ordered it very early. And my sister was over at the house when it arrived, so now she got upset that I bought all this meat for my dad, and she made my dad promise that he wouldn't cook any of it or eat any of it until she comes over again. And so he can't eat the food that I bought him as a gift until...
Oh, for heaven's sake.
It's ridiculous. I know. That's my Omaha Steak problem.
Well,
right
all right. Well, see.
Everyone wants it.
Everybody wants it. Women want meat too. Well, give the woman in your life some meat tonight when you get the chance. Go to omahasteaks.com and type in the following code, JCE, Omaha Steaks. That's O-M-A-H. Wait a minute. O-M-A-H-A, omahasteaks.com. Everybody knows how to spell Omaha. Code JCE.
In the search bar.
In the search bar. I was about to get to that. Type it in the search bar. And then you get some free bacon with select packages. And free shipping with select packages. And all kinds of stuff. But anyway, whether it's be Father's Day, Mother's Day, give the man in your life some meat. Give the woman in your life some meat. Give her some extra meat. She might not be getting enough meat lately. Omaha Steaks, burgers, franks, sausages. Give her some sausages. I'm going to get out of this one way or another. Anyway, Father's Day packages are ready to order and ready to ship, and many include free shipping and a free pound of steak cut bacon. Obviously, you can't just order one dessert and get a pound of bacon for free, but you know the drill here. omahasteaks.com. Food delivered to your door. Type the code JCE in the search bar. They'll know we sent you. Holy jumping shitballs, it's pea-picking good.
It actually pops right up. If you put JC in the search bar, you'll see something that says Jim Cornette Experience.
There you go. If you go to omahasteaks.com and put JCE in the search bar, my meat pops right up.
Well, I think we've heard just about enough about your meat on this episode, Jim.
Well, it's not on the Omaha Steaks menu.
No, thank God.
My personal meat is not.
No. I don't know where we go from here or how I get out of this.
Well, what are you doing this week with your personal meat and potatoes? The podcast, of course.
We'll be having plenty of talks about our personal meat this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, of course. Get information about all the shows. There you hear it. Once again.
Whatever pops up.
And the hat trick. Get information about all shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. Just a few show notes here. This coming week on Ron Fuller's Super Studcast, available for patrons of the Studcast at patreon.com/Studcast. The Tennessee Stud welcomes Mick Foley, hardcore legend, Cactus Jack, Mankind. Here, the Tennessee Stud and Mick Foley. You know, Mick Foley has talked about it in the past. I believe he's talked about it in his books. When he was just starting out, someone who actually was very helpful to him was Robert Fuller, the brother of the Tennessee Stud. later to call himself the Tennessee Stud. So hear about that and so much more, once again, this coming Tuesday, patreon.com/studcast. Also want to make mention of the fact that the Arcadian Vanguard video channel on YouTube has some great content, not just the archives of the Jim Cornette experience and Jim Cornette's drive-thru, but the 605 Super Podcast is up there. And we also have now John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Live, a weekly show, a video show where John talks with various guests. This past week, he had Mary Freese, the daughter of Pampero Firpo, as well as Supermouth Dave Drayson, otherwise known as Dave Brzezinski, on the program to talk Detroit, Pampero Firpo, and so much more. And actually, a bonus episode just went up. Go check it out today. John Arezzi speaks with Mick Foley, as well as Evan Husney and Sonny Beach about Herb Abrams, the UWF, and a lot of other topics. Mick Foley went and recreated all these years later Herbie cookies and sent them out to a few people. So you get to see them, you get to hear about them. Once again, the Arcadian Vanguard video channel. Just go to YouTube and search for Arcadian Vanguard or tinyurl.com/cornyyoutube, and it brings it right up. Check it out today. And of course, the 605 Super Podcast, the Mothership! Hee-haw! I thought I was going to get the spring sound again. What is that? What would you call that sound? What do you call that?
Well, that's the exit, stage left.
Well, the Super Podcast, we are editing the show right now. It should be up fairly soon. There was a segment that was going to be on this episode. I have to decide what to do with it now. It dealt with Mr. Wrestling 2 and Rocky Johnson and some guys who have troubling things in their past that we need to evaluate when looking at their career and trying to evaluate their overall career. But we also have Jeff Winningham on Houston Wrestling, Brad Baluchian on the Iron Sheik, Bertrand Bear on Andre the Giant, and Steve Verrier on Gene Kaniski. Go through the archives today, 605pod.com, and get information about the show on Facebook, facebook.com/superpodcast, or on Twitter @605pod. The 605 Super Podcast, episode 103, coming at you very soon. The Mothership!
Oh, God damn it, you got me again.
Whoa, that's a new one.
Well, see there. That's what I ought to fucking give you every once in a while.
I've never heard any of those.
Or, how about that?
I've heard that one before.
Oh, well, I bet you have. Anyway, all right, here we go again. All right, let's get serious. We do have to get serious. We want to talk for a second about, obviously, Mr. Wrestling 2, Johnny Walker, passed away this past week, and he was 85. He had actually had a heart attack right after the Charlotte Fan Fest. Probably about 5 or 6 years ago. That's the first time I had seen him in ages. He was living in Hawaii, has been living in Hawaii, came back out and did that Fan Fest, and the next morning everybody was going home, and he woke up having a heart attack and was on the phone with somebody, said, I can't breathe, and they said, well, you ought to go to the hospital. And ended up that's what happened. So he was lucky there. But, everybody was talking about Wrestling 2 is possibly, I guess, would you think, because his heyday came later than the Destroyer. So he's the most recent American masked guy that really was iconic and meant something. I mean, until you get if you consider Kane being a masked guy for some period of time or whatever, but the mask is like everything else. It isn't protected as much as it used to be. The big thing with Wrestling 2 was like Mascaras. When I'd been in the business before 7 years before I saw Mascaras without his mask. I've told that story. It was 1989, and he came up to Corpus Christi for the Clash of Champions. And I was in the airport with Flair and Kevin and Sullivan, and they pointed him out to me because I'd never seen him, obviously. And he didn't wear the mask flying internationally. There was actually pictures of Mascaras on planes in Mexico wearing the mask. But anyway, he gets off the fucking plane at the airport in Corpus Christi without the mask. He looked like a middle-aged Mexican businessman, right? A suit and tie and balding and just nondescript. But then when you see him in the same suit, but he's got that mask on, he looked like somebody. And it was the same thing with 2. That's one of the reasons why I think that he came up with the mask. He worked as the grappler in Florida for a while in the late 60s, early 70s, and then did Mr. Wrestling 2 in Georgia starting in, 73. Johnny Walker looked old even when he was young, and he was balding and he looked nondescript. And especially in the 80s, by the time that I saw him and got to work with him, he really looked like an old man if he was just standing around. But he put that mask on and the body worked, and it lengthened his career 15 years, I guess. He didn't retire until the late 80s, and he'd been wrestling for almost 20 years when he put the fucking thing on. So, but as I said, the mask has been, cheapened. You never saw, that was the thing. You want to see Wrestling 2 without his mask. You want to see Mil Mascaras without his mask. And some of the other major masked guys had that mystique back in the 60s, 70s, or whatever. But Wrestling 2 worked it. I worked in the same territory, Mid-South Wrestling, as him. That was our first main event program against he and Magnum TA for the Mid-South Tag Team title. We had matches every night for 2 months, almost every night for 2 months with him. And I saw him without his mask exactly one time in his car on the way to a show. And Dennis Condrey, who had worked Georgia, knew who it was, and he knew Two's car. He said, "Watch, there's Two. We're about to pass him." By then, Two was old and cranky. JR has talked about this. He didn't want to ride with the young guys. He wasn't doing the things the young guys were doing, and he was just cranky anyway. He had this little bitty car. They got like 50 miles to the gallon, and he'd drive himself to. That's another reason he was riding himself in Mid-South Wrestling, or driving himself and riding alone, and those trips were brutal. So he was always kind of cranky, but he looked like a fucking regular, your average neighbor down the street. And then when he put that mask and that outfit on, it transformed him, body language and everything. But those were he showered with the mask. I mean, he was in the babyface locker room most of the time. So even if we were in the locker room together, he showered in the mask. He wore it. He stopped his car 4 or 5 miles from the building and put the mask on, and he wore it the same amount of distance away from the shows at night, more if he thought the people were following him. And, and so he had some mystery to him, but he was over. He had fire in his promo. He had gruff voice. He sounded like he meant business. He'd been working so long. He knew what to do. He knew how to sell as a babyface and fight and stay with it. And he had that fucking knee lift, and just the way that he moved around. He actually, that old balding looking fucker, but when he put the mask on, he had the soul and the head bob and the fucking, little dance and everything. It transformed him. And the fans at that time in Mid-South, Bobby didn't understand what the fucking deal was. The first week we worked with them, we got Two down and started getting some heat on him. And the people not only checked, "Who, Two," but it took him for a second to get it, but they were doing the thing that he would do when he would sell. He'd put his 2 fingers up and he'd start bopping the 2 fingers up and down with his arms and bending them. And Bobby thought, he said, "What is he trying to fucking scratch me? What's he doing with his fingers?" But then once he'd start doing that, that would make the people start going 2, 2, 2, just that thing with his fingers. And he'd have the whole fucking place going 2, 2, 2 with just his fucking fingers while he was in a goddamn chin lock. And then his body language, he'd start slowly standing up and get a little bit stronger, and then he'd start firing back, and they'd blow. Anyway, that was really his last run. He switched heel on Magnum, which was a way of getting them out of our program. We beat them for the belts, but the switch happened in the match where we won the belts, so they didn't need to come back and get revenge. Then we headed to the Last Stampede and the Rock and Roll Express. And Two worked a program with Magnum to, teacher versus student, to get him over. And then, did that thing with Dog, which we might talk about in a second. Remind me to ask about it. And then brought Hercules Hernandez in to be the new Mr. Wrestling 2, and Wrestling 2 became just Mr. Wrestling. And then and then when he left the territory, we took the mask off Hercules. He became my bodyguard. But Two was over. in that territory for that couple of year run that he had there. And of course, in Georgia, he may have been the most popular babyface of the first half of the 70s, and like Tim Woods was last part of the 60s, and in a different way like Tommy Rich was the last few years of the 70s. But he was amazingly over. And they thought the thing with Dog, you mentioned it before we went on the air, the one fart in that whole deal was when Wrestling 2 switched heel and left Magnum adrift. They were going to try to get heat on him. Was it for the North American title? He beat Dog for the title, didn't he?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Junkyard Dog was the North American champion. They were going to do the deal where 2 fucked him out of the title so that he could then, turn around and drop it to Magnum. And Dog would lose the loser leave town stipulation so that he could go away for a month or whatever it was. And then Stagger Lee would come back to team with Watts against the Midnight Express in the last Stampede. So all this was carefully worked out. And of course, the $1 million knee lift wasn't enough to beat the Junkyard Dog in New Orleans, as a previous email attested. He was over like God. So 2 was going to load the knee pad. And 2 loaded the fucking knee pad and ran and hit the Dog with the fucking knee lift. And Dog, at that time, it was just a month or 2 or 3 before he was going to leave and go to the WWF. And he had gained a lot of weight, and he was definitely on the shit. And he had lost he was still over, but he had lost the rawness and the oomph and the power that made him the Dog that got him over. And he just took the shittiest bump. He just kind of stiffened up and timbered, and it looked phony, and the people groaned. And we were there that night early. It was a decent house in New Orleans. We were there that night earlier, but since that match went on last, me and the Midnight left and took the opportunity to get out of there before the people would be in the parking lot, so we wouldn't need the fucking cops on the horses and everything. We just got the fuck out. But by the time that was a Monday night, right? So I think we did TV that week, so we would have been at the interviews on Wednesday, and then TV taping that night, and we saw the tape. And we heard about what happened. And nobody was going to say it to JYD's face because he was still, the guy and everything. But, oh, my God, that's what first hurt Dog in New Orleans. It hurt New Orleans in general. And it 2 didn't get over because the people thought that Dog took a dive. As once again, and you've heard this story before from other people than me. But the way that people thought about wrestling then and about JYD specifically, it was like Austin hugging McMahon. JYD took a dive. That looked fake. I don't believe it anymore. It hurt the fucking town and hurt the fucking business. But anyway, on a more positive note, here's a trivia answer for you that only the people who have ordered and actually received Tuesday Night at the Gardens are aware of. Johnny Walker was the first challenger to an NWA World Champion in the city of Louisville, Kentucky, between 1955 and 1970. When Jarrett first opened up, the NWA title hadn't been defended obviously the town was dark for 5 years. And then before that, Barnett was running it, or Bruiser and Snyder were running it out of Indiana. And before that was Barnett out of the Indianapolis office, the Midwest office. They didn't use the NWA champion. Buddy Rogers was here, but he didn't defend the title here, as any research that I have been led to see believe, or any that I've seen leads me to believe. So it would have been Thez back in the mid-50s under the Allen Athletic Club when the NWA title was last defended in Louisville until Jarrett opened up in 1970. Johnny Walker happened to be the top name babyface in the territory at the time that he was able to get in Louisville on semi-regular occasion. Lynn Rossi and Bearcat Brown, Tojo and Jerry Jarrett were the babyface tag teams. So Johnny Walker got the spot against Dory, and that's the last NWA title match we got in Louisville until 1974. So there's some trivia for you. If this was Louisville, Johnny Walker would be getting a parade down Broadway.
He was the favorite of Jerry Jarrett's, wasn't he?
He did like it because Jarrett was instrumental in pushing the Wrestling 2 gimmick. Jarrett claims he invented it. We have had a timeline that suggests that maybe he was doing it before Jarrett took the book in Atlanta, but that Jarrett definitely did push him. But yeah, he had worked the Tennessee territory a number of times as Johnny Walker. And Jarrett liked that fire and liked the way he connected with the promos. But anyway, I guess who is the oldest living wrestler now? Uncle Dave was printing that information every time another old timer would pass, but 85 and 86 is getting up into the rare air as far as wrestling personalities go. Isn't it like between 85 and 92 now?
Len Rossi is probably, if he's not 90, he's closing in on 90. I know
yeah.
that. For a while it was the Hawaiian guys like Neff Maava and Ed Francis, but they both passed. Lance
Russell was up there, Pampiro Firpo.
Yeah. A lot of the guys, it's funny, a lot of the guys who had healthy lifestyles, Firpo, Len Rossi, Bruno Sammartino, the guys that lived a long time. It's probably not.
Well, imagine that. The people had healthy lifestyles and took care of themselves, had longer lives. Who would have thought?
It's probably not Len Rossi, but Len Rossi's probably one of the oldest living wrestlers right now. I don't know who else. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think who else is around. I don't know.
Well, and also, by the way, I think Wrestling 2's family, at least, his household, thanks to his wife, Miss Livia, probably made as much off costuming as he did off wrestling, especially in the years when he was slowing down, because Wrestling 2's wife is the one who made all of the famous 70s and 80s robes for Flair and Greg Valentine and Wrestling 2 and all those beautiful robes and all the sequins and the feathers and the boas and all that stuff that you would see guys wearing then. She's the one that made them. And I think Flair and Valentine, when they were on top in the Carolinas as world tag team champions in the late 70s, they were both making $150,000 a piece per year in just the Carolinas. That's before they had to fucking go to the Northeast and they expanded, etc. And they were taking limousines to the fucking matches, and they had a robe contest because those things cost back then between $3,000 and $6,000 a piece. And what is that math for today's money? And from late 70s, early 80s. But that's why Flair ended up with a lot of those robes. He just started fucking having a contest with the other guys so he could get the most of them. Anyway, Mr. Wrestling 2. So what do you follow that with? Wrestling, perhaps? Should we talk about the wrestling match I saw on television this week that broke out in the middle of Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, let's do that.
FTR made their debut on All Petite Wrestling. Hold on here, I'm going for my notes. Against the Butcher and the Blade. By the way, where is this Bunny? We saw the Butcher and the Baker, but not the Candlestick Maker.
Well, you see, apparently the last several weeks on TV, they've been teasing. All of a sudden, without any notice, the Bunny was in the crowd flirting with QT Marshall. And now the Bunny is with QT, and I ended up watching a little more of AEW this week than you did. There was a promo backstage with the Natural Nightmares, the worst name for a tag team in a while, Dustin Rhodes, QT Marshall, Brandy Rhodes, and the Bunny was just hanging off QT wearing one of those jackets with the colors of Cody's neck tattoo. And Brandy got very upset that the Bunny is wearing her family's colors. So they're doing something with QT and the Bunny, who of course in real life is married to the Blade.
Oh boy.
Obviously, you have missed all of this, and I'm sure.
God damn it. God damn it. Just fucking, do I have a gunshot sound on this thing? Hold on. Let me see if somebody could shoot me now. Wait a minute. No, that wouldn't be it. How about this? Wait a minute. That's the way I think about that whole thing. So they just start, not to go off on a tangent, but they just start people on TV and then just change their names and their gimmicks and their affiliations just from week to week on television in front of God and everybody.
Well, who knows? I mean, it could be a long-term plot by the Butcher and the Blade to have the Bunny fool QT Marshall, give him a false sense of security, setting up that feud that everyone's been waiting for, the Natural Nightmares versus the Blade and the Butcher.
Well, before I saw this match, I would have said I don't think the Butcher and the Blade ought to start reading any continued stories or having any long-term plans in wrestling. But actually, they don't look too well. One of them, at least, don't look too bad. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First of all, the Butcher and the Blade. What is this fucking gimmick? What is this gimmick? Blade comes out wearing a mask, but he takes it off to wrestle. Is he affiliated with the Dork Order? Because they're doing the same fucking thing. Some of their guys are masked, some are not. It's indiscriminate. Sometimes we know their name, but they're wearing a fucking mask. Sometimes they're not wearing a mask, we don't know their fucking name. I don't know what the fuck. The Butcher, he's wearing a fucking monocle. Is he a goddamn World War I German fighting air ace? Or is he a butcher? Nothing he does relates to a butcher. Are any of his moves named anything that a butcher would use? Does he have a background as a butcher? Is he an actual butcher in the meat department? Or is he a butcher? He's been a commandant of a prison camp, and he was called the Butcher of Borneo in the war crimes trial. What the fuck? And also, I wrote down here, where is Bunny? You've answered that for me. I wrote, is Blade a knife thrower in the circus? What do their names and their appearance have with who they are, and who the fuck are they? And why are they called these things? I mean, it may be oversimplifying things, but with Beautiful Bobby and Sweet Stan, you kind of knew that here's the blonde guys that think they're fucking good looking. Or goddamn any tag team in fucking history. You kind of understood what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck is going on here. Have I missed something, or they're just leaving it up to us to determine this?
I mean, the only things I could think of are, there was that promo video, maybe a vignette video is more appropriate, way back where MJF went and gave them money, and they were in seemingly a butcher shop cutting up something. But I don't know if they work together in a butcher shop. I don't know if that's why
they were friends from the butcher shop.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay, anyway. But just here's the thing, and it just doesn't look, it looks outlaw when they come out. And I'm not even knocking these guys in person, because Blade, this was the best I've seen him look. He's got new gear, it seems like. He looks in good shape. He got new hair, or a new haircut, or whatever. His work was excellent here. I'm not knocking these guys. This gimmick is just fucking rotten. Why can't this company come up with any appealing way to present anybody? The gimmicks are fucking horrible. FTR come out. Okay, customized truck. The truck's going to be a thing. Okay, they got a big outdoor arena. But they came in with serious faces. They had some swagger to their walk to the ring. They come into the ring like a tag team. They know where the cameras are. They're trash talking, even though you can't hear it. It looked like somebody was coming into the ring that I should pay attention to. How can I explain this any better, Brian? It wasn't just like some fucking goofy guys off the indies trying to be wrestlers. You can tell when you look. Can you explain it any better than that?
No, I think you pretty much explained it.
Well, I didn't really explain it to anybody who doesn't already know what I
look. They stand out from everyone else because of the way they carry themselves.
Anyway, Dax and Blade started. I was glad to say they locked up. Not only did a wrestling match begin with a lockup, imagine that, but they locked up like men and struggled and pie-faced each other and bulled around a little bit and did it more than once. Tied up and tested each other out a little bit. And then you look at Dax Harwood, his basics, his body language is on point. When he fucking takes the head, hip toss, fucking has him down. He's not just sitting there in a headlock. He was up on the points of his toes, leaning his body language into the fucking hold. The holds look good. He works them. The strikes are there because he lays them in good places. Spots are smooth. He's hitting the ropes. There's not wasted motion. The opening spot, if you want to call it that, the exchange that Dax and Blade had was the best wrestling that I've seen on this television series. I think just because it looked like two professionals actually doing it. The booking of this, of course, is completely goofy because they're making a heel team is making their debut on the television program against a heel team. And so that was fucking stupid. But they did little things. Dax, early on a roll-up, he pulled the trunks. They established early that they were kind of the heels to watch in this match. Even if the other guys may be heelish later, we're kind of still heels. They were smart with it. Jim Ross had to mention that the tag teams were actually following the rules. That's amazing that should be brought up. Imagine in the fifth inning of a fucking Major League Baseball game. Say, by the way, folks, you may have noticed that both teams are following the rules in this game. Fuck. FTR's so smooth on their tags. They're holding the tag rope and all, etc., but also smooth on just the tags in and out and the double teams on the tags. There's no wasted time or motion. Like Cash did that little fucking sell the arm spot when he took a bump and suckered Butcher, but he didn't just come back to life instantly and do it and people miss it. He actually threw his arms up in the air to show everybody that he was fine and then did the roll up. Portraying things to people. Butcher and the Baker got heat on Cash and he sold well. He shouldn't have been put in that position because they're heels, but as I mentioned, they can't tell who their heels and their babyface are, and they need to fix that before great things can happen. But this was the only Butcher and Blade match that I've ever seen that actually made sense. I wrote here at this point. They got the heat on Cash, and then he came out with a big power slam to set up the tag. It's awkward for FTR to do a hot tag. They're heels. But so it wasn't a full duck and dodge, and I don't know if Butcher would have tried to fucking cut him off if he had, but it was a tag. Dax made a beautiful comeback. It went some back and forth. FTR hit the superplex splash on Blade, and it looked like that Cash was coming off. He was like, shit, I'm going to be about a foot short, so he converted it into a nice little elbow drop over the midsection, but it looked like it landed. And that was a big false finish. And then Blade and Butcher took over for a couple, but the FTR's teamwork foiled them. And this was the only miscue, and it wasn't really their fault. They tried to hit, what was it, the Shatter Machine?
Yeah.
Which is now named the Goodnight Express.
That's right.
They tried to hit that on Butcher, but Butcher's fat ass not only didn't go up, but went sideways, and they kind of got it, but then they hit a nice spike pile driver on Blade 1, 2, 3. It was the right result. It was the best wrestling match, just wrestling match I think I've seen on, and definitely best tag team match I've seen on AEW so far. Blade has never looked better than that. And boy, I wish that he could either get him away from fucking Butcher or do something else with Butcher. The gimmick is horrible, but that was the only match I've ever seen them have that made sense from start to finish on their program. So that was all fine. But they can't get out of their own way. You've got a major talent acquisition. I say major not just in my estimation, but the whole world was talking about it. They paid a lot of money for them, probably. I didn't share any financial details, but they got to be paid. It's a billionaire, and they ain't stupid. They left big money, so they're going to be getting a lot of money to appear on this program anytime they appear on it. Everybody's talking about them, and they're the best tag team in the business, and they can hopefully teach by process of fucking osmosis, by being in the ring with some of these other idiot indie outlaw tag teams in AEW, they can teach them how to be better teams. It's a win, 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 all the way around, right? What did every wrestling promotion since the dawn of time do when they brought a big star or stars into their fucking company, Brian?
I don't know where you're going. I don't know.
What do they do every week on television when a big star comes into a promotion? They talk. They talk. They wrestle as much as possible, but they talk all the time. Any major main event talent that's ever come into any major wrestling promotion since the dawn of television, it's basic. You put them on television, they beat people, and they talk. And it's more important for them to talk than it is to beat people. Once they've beaten a couple people, they need to talk every week. Plus, they can talk in 2 minutes where you need to give them at least 6 or 8 or 10 for them to beat somebody. They go to a promo with Tony Schiavone and get 14 words out maximum before here comes those two little twiddle shits, the Jackoff brothers, to bring this thing back to the fucking mud show. They could have spoken for 2 minutes and told everybody why they were there and what they wanted to do and what their fucking plans were, or just talk about how great they are and how big their dicks are and how they're going to take those big dicks that they got and literally take every team in AEW and bend them over and fuck them to death. But they didn't, because Road Warrior Buck and his brother Balding Buck had to come out dressed like idiots, like 15-year-old delinquents, and cut a promo where Nick sounded like he was taking a cruise on Lake Havasoma, and Road Warrior Buck was actually trying to be physically intimidating and be phony at the same time. He sounded like he was doing a phony wrestling promo where he actually growled and was trying to be intimidating with a mean voice, standing in front of a fucking guy who, as we've seen, has a one-punch knockout, and the other guy could fucking turn him upside down and shake him for change, and the same old fucking tired ass, we've carried tag team wrestling for years when they don't even know how to fucking do it. If they wanted to come out and confront the best tag team in wrestling, FTR, they could have waited 2 fucking minutes so I could hear what the men have to say before the children's table chimes in, or as my mother used to say, comments from the peanut gallery. So then, while the men are staring at the boys, suddenly, before we get to see anything, and obviously that was the tease that they meant to do, suddenly here comes Butcher and Blade and Jimmy Havoc and Kip Sabian and Adam Page and Twinkle Toes McFingerbang, and they just have a flurry where everyone fights, and then the 3 supposed top teams bump the other 3 fucking job teams out, and everyone stares at everyone awkwardly. Twinkle Toes actually in the middle of that broke into applauding for something and did a little skip. Anybody wants to go back and watch that tape? In the middle of this goddamn animated fucking supposed stare off and confrontation all these guys are having and mouthing off and everything at each other, Olivier actually begins applauding for some reason and does a little skip in the ring with his little feet. He's got happy feet. And it just fucking ended. Because you can't even gift these motherfuckers main event talent because they don't know what to do with it if you do. What the fuck? Let them cut a promo. If the Bucks want to come out and say something, at least they could try. They could try to be convincing instead of playing wrestler. And then if you have to have the champions come out right at that given moment, then it might have been an interesting thing if they came out there and if Paige could say it, because Olivier sounds like a sissy twat when he says anything. But Paige could say, hey, all you guys are doing is fighting over second place because we're still the champions. So when you settle your fucking little beef, then come and see us if you want a lesson. And maybe get some intrigue going here. But instead, it's just more of the same fucking outlaw guys involved, awkward fucking finish, no verbalization from anybody except the people who think they can talk and can't. So great match, rotten segment, and I go back to the advice that I gave those gentlemen in FTR last week or week before, whenever it was, and I will give it to them again publicly. Start asking for forgiveness instead of permission. Impose your fucking will on everyone that you can, which is pretty much everyone you're going to be in the ring with. Do things your own way and apologize to the boss if he gets upset and tell everybody else to suck your big fat white cocks. That's the only way you're going to get over in this shit show, this clown show, this amateur hour, is do things your own way. And I sincerely hope they're going to be doing that. What'd you think?
I thought it was an excellent match. Obviously the best match I've ever seen the Butcher and the Blade in. If I can critique anything, I think they need better music. I'm not so sold on coming out with the truck either, but obviously they're in a different type of venue than they would normally be in if there were fans and there wasn't a pandemic. I think the match exposed a lot of the AEW tag teams and the Young Bucks for what a lot of people like you and I have been saying. These guys, FTR, are the best tag team in wrestling. They know how to lay out a match. They know how to have a match that is exciting, that is fast-paced, that you can lose yourself in, that you're
not a joke.
You're
it's
not
serious, but it's exciting.
You're not waiting for a high spot. You're not thinking, okay, when's the dive coming? You don't care about that. They're so good at laying out their matches. And there's enough tributes to, I shouldn't even say tributes. They take the elements that worked from wrestling and tag team wrestling of the past and apply it to their matches. So that it's not like, oh, they're doing a parody of 80s wrestling, like what Vince McMahon wanted. No, they're taking what works and applying it here. And like you said, I hope some of these teams learn from these guys in there. I hope that they have a match with the Bucks when they have that match, and they're the ones laying out the match, not Nick and Matt Jackson.
Well, and that's why I say, I think that contingent upon this arrangement that they have made, when you get the best in the world at what they do, you should be willing to make some concessions. I think one of those concessions Tony Khan needs to be making is tell his little fucking play vice presidents, shut the fuck up, as we used to say, open your ears and shut your mouth and listen, and we'll have a great match. And if FTR needs to take them by the nose and lead them willingly or unwillingly, they need to do that. And it's not just, if the Young Bucks just do what they're told, nobody will get hurt and they'll look better. They'll look like they know what they're doing for once. Or they can try to do their own shit and this stupid shit that they do, and that will not only hurt business, but hurt FTR's image. And I would think that FTR knows that and will not allow that to happen, because why would you go they've just left one big promotion and now they're in the other one that pays well. And these two little jackoffs are going to make them look like another couple of the boys. No, they are special. They need to stand out and they need to stay special, and they need to do what they need to do that, whether the Bucks want to fucking go along with it or not. Because who's going to fucking stop them? Can you honestly see Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler in an actual legitimate confrontation with the Bucks? I can't either, because the Bucks wouldn't let that happen, because they would know the winner of that horse race. Fucking little twits.
And by the way, I will say this, and I tweeted this out, they're horrible on the mic. And I guess if you're
it was brutal.
If you're into their YouTube show, maybe you like their personalities, but like you said, Nick Jackson, I don't know if he's half asleep. He's certainly not a pothead, I wouldn't think, because he's so religious. But he's out there. He sounds like he just doesn't care. And then Matt Jackson acting like he's little Mr. Tough Guy. They're not good on the mic at all. And then they're acting like the heels. Everyone
yeah, well, that's another thing. Who's the fucking heels here? You just brought in the best heel team in the business, and you're trying to out-heel them. I could see people's fucking palms getting itchy in TV land with Matt. The more Matt Jackson spoke, the more I wanted to slap him. He's obviously being heelish because he's playing wrestler. He's pretending to be a wrestler.
And I like Adam Page pretending to be a drunk. I've actually gotten a kick out of that. I've said it before. I don't know if he needed to come out to the brawl holding a drink. That didn't make much sense. But, I think about the previous pay-per-view and a lot of the episodes we reviewed when you were still reviewing these episodes. And the MJF matches always stood out because, here's a guy who could do high spots if he wanted to. And instead he works a wrestling match. And we get into it. You have to think that if there was an audience there, because of his personality, they would be into it. You're not waiting for high spots. It's a wrestling match in 2020, and it works. These guys do the same thing. These guys can have a wrestling match without gratuitous high spots.
Yeah.
Without no selling everything and popping up and doing more spots. these guys can do it too. And I think for everyone who thinks, oh, well, it's the style of today that these guys wrestle like this, it shows you that, no, there are guys who can actually wrestle and it works in 2020. It doesn't have to be nonstop video game high spots and all this bullshit that these guys are only capable of doing. They're not capable of just laying out a match and having it make sense. Some are, but most don't.
Well, we'll never know because most of them don't try. But anyway, so that concludes our AEW review. I want to thank them, and hopefully they'll do this every week. Put FTR on the opening segment so I don't even have to fucking sully the fucking fast-forward capability of my DVR with zipping through the rest of the fucking show to get to the good stuff. Although I did say they did not advertise MJF, so I did not look for him because he wasn't advertised. Did I miss him?
Yeah, I ended up watching the whole episode because I wasn't sure what you were going to watch and what you weren't going to watch.
I told you I was going to watch FTR.
I know, but you know what? I should have figured out when they went to segment 2 that you were already out. But I ended up watching the show. And MJF did a promo later on in the show leading to a confrontation with Billy Gunn and his son. And apparently there was another guy there who was another one of his sons. I don't know who this guy was. But when he said your son and your other son, they showed this other guy I've never seen before. Leading to a match next week. I believe it's the Guns versus MJF and Wardlow, or maybe it's just MJF versus one of the Guns. I don't even remember what the match is.
Billy Gunn must have enough cum in him to shampoo a buffalo.
But MJF was talking about the fact he's been undefeated for over a year now, and there's no competition. And obviously Billy Gunn said, hey, what about me? I will say there's one thing on the show which you may like, and that is Cody, since he won the TNT championship, 2 weeks in a row, he's defended the title on the show in the last segment. Last week, which was a match with Jungle Boy, and this week with Mark Quinn. And if that's a regular thing where the TV champion's going to defend the last segment of each show, and it's Cody, and by and large, usually with a Cody match, there's too much outside interference, too much smoke and mirrors. But by and large, this is the kind of thing you like, and they keep teleporting and that kind of shit out of it.
Well, yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like Cody defending the TV title each week against different people would be something that I would like, and it's just such a shame that they had that joke of a fucking football field piece of shit and a bunch of wrestlers teleporting and fucking going back in time and changing fucking clothes in the ice machine to keep me from seeing stuff that I might like because it insulted my intelligence so much that I refused to fucking watch it. So I wonder if I'm the only one.
Can I tell you something else I saw on this show?
Please. But anyway, if MJF is on next week, I'll watch MJF. I'm going to watch FTR and MJF. I'm only going to watch people with initials. Go ahead. Tell me what you're going to tell me.
I know you've, in the past, been high on Matt Hardy. And to be honest...
Unfortunately, I think Matt Hardy is now high.
Well, I never really was. I mean, I thought he was okay, but, you know, in the Hardy Boys, it was obviously Jeff Hardy that was the star. But I was never a big Matt Hardy fan.
Yeah, but actually, Matt was the stabilizing force. Matt was the worker, and Matt, to me, was always the fucking... the level-headed mind of the two.
Maybe it's just me, but I've never, you know, I don't have complete vitriol for him or anything, but I've just never been a Matt Hardy fan. I never got into him as a singles wrestler. So he comes out, I'm trying to remember who he was confronting here. It may have been Sammy Guevara. He comes out and he's regular Matt Hardy and he's talking to him. And then now, instead of teleporting or being put into an ice machine, he bent over, and when he came back up from bending over, all of a sudden his voice changed, and he was the other Matt Hardy again. And
wait a minute, what, you mean just like bend over and then stand back?
He bent over, stood back up.
What, did somebody give him a suppository, or what?
I don't know, but I will say Matt Hardy, at this point, is go home heat with me. If he's on TV, I want to be anywhere but in front of the TV. I just do not want to see that. I wish they hadn't signed.
See, that's why, and that's why I specifically didn't watch the stuff in Impact like everybody else in the world. I didn't watch the Impact stuff because the teleporting and all the science fiction stuff. I've liked Matt and Jeff, and I didn't want to think ill of them. And now that I've seen and once again we said, and we're going to get off this in a second, but when Matt actually did the promo as Matt Hardy here a few weeks ago that we saw, wow, I like that Matt Hardy. When he wrestles at Matt Hardy, he knows what he's doing. I like that Matt Hardy. Matt Hardy gets thrown in the fucking pool and comes up as a different person, or thrown in the ice machine and comes out in a different dimension. I don't ever want to see any of that again. And now that I've seen that, I can't fucking enjoy Matt. Because it's just fucking stupid and phony. Anyway.
And one other thing you'd be happy to know.
Oh, goddamn. Nothing more on this program. One more thing.
The entire Dork Order has been reunited. They are back from Canada.
Oh, good Lord. Why the... They still won't fucking... They need to take... I mean, I don't even know if you can...
And they're trying to recruit Colt Cabana.
Oh, of course they are. If you can clean the stain, if the stain is cleanable, if it's like the blood stains on the keys of the organ and the loft and the ghost and Mr. Chicken, and they used Bonami, you can't get the stench of the worst tag team or gimmick of any kind in the history of wrestling off of this. They need to take Brody Lee, all the numbered Dork Orders, Pizzeria Uno, and the rest of the whole hee-haw gang, throw them in a goddamn meat grinder, grind them up, and sell the fucking sausage for charity. What the fuck? Anyway.
And Chris Jericho is now, it seems to be, in the midst of a feud with the baddest man on the planet.
That's fine.
You know who that is, right?
I don't care. It's Mike Tyson. It used to be Mike Tyson.
Orange Cassidy.
What?
It's apparently Jericho and Orange Cassidy, including after a match, I forget who, it was the Best Friends and someone, Jericho and the Inner Circle came out with a bag of oranges and attacked Orange Cassidy with the bag of oranges.
Remember when I said that I was going to not watch AEW on television forever?
Yes.
Let me add an ever to that now that you've told me that. Let's go to NXT real quickly and wrap the program up. Because I did watch NXT because I wanted to see what they're doing on the other channel when we know what we're getting on TNT. And the cable company did not want to... You watched NXT also, I believe. Did you not?
I did.
Okay, the cable company didn't want to cooperate for some reason because for the first 2 or 3 minutes of the program, I got the, this channel will be available shortly thing.
Oh, man.
And then suddenly it popped up. But Adam Cole was in the ring with Strong and Fish, Roderick Strong, Bobby Fish. I've said it, Adam Cole is one of the few guys these days who can deliver one of these scripted promos and sound like he half-ass not only actually means it, but maybe coming up with it. You figure if somebody's written this down and he's memorized it, but maybe it was actually him. You know, it kind of, I'll grade on the curve. I'll give him the benefit. He has good facials, verbal cadence. He delivers it. It's still a bit scripted, but at least he's doing a job that doesn't just fucking insult me. You know what I mean? He's well spoken.
I think if he's not the best talker in the business right now, he's one of them, because he comes across as believing what he's actually saying.
Yeah,
which a lot of these guys who are scripted clearly can't do, and I don't blame them. I mean, it's hard to have someone write a bunch of gibberish for you and have to get it over. But he's fantastic on the mic. Fantastic.
You ought to hear him. That's what I loved about him when he was doing his own promos. Where you just say, okay, you're talking about fucking a match with Joe Brown. You got 45 seconds. Boom. It was, so anyway, boom, no pun intended. But then, and apparently I didn't watch TakeOver. I'm not up on the new guy, but Roderick Strong and Bobby Fish started seeing some guy, later found out it's the guy named Loomis. What's his name? His name's Dexter Loomis. They were afraid of him. He apparently locked Roddy in a fucking trunk after the pay-per-view or whatever. They're seeing him standing there behind the plexiglass watching them, but when they would turn Adam Cole, he was gone. Now, I saw this bit when Abbott and Costello first did it, when the frog that would come up from the bowl of soup and spit in fucking Lou Costello's face, but he would go, hey, B, Abbott, and then Bud would turn around and the frog is gone. But now they're doing this with the Undisputed Era. It took a couple of times for me to get what they were, but I thought the guy was coming and watching and they were going to see him, but no, unless he goddamn does have the ability to appear and disappear, this is bullshit. There's people standing next to where the guy was standing. You see the camera angle would have to be able to see him. Now the Undisputed Era are Mo, Larry, and Curly because they're having them do this shit too. So I thought about invoking my teleportation rule and turning the fucking thing off. But I said, no, I want to see who this guy is and the fact that Adam Cole's going to have a match with him. I've not seen this guy before. Although, who was he before he became Dexter Lumis? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'll find out right now.
He looks familiar. Something about his face. Anyway, so I want to see the match with Adam Cole. The next match was Keith Lee and Mia Yim against Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Let me preface this by saying I know Mia Yim. She's a very nice person, a very good wrestler. But what the fuck? Keith Lee could be a major main event fucking player here. He's got an NFL background. He's that size and he moves like that. We've raved about Keith Lee and his fucking Hulk smash business and all that stuff. He's in a mixed tag team match against a guy half his size and a fucking girl. Mia was bigger than Gargano. When she fucking got up in his face, she's bigger than Gargano. And then Candice LeRae gets up in Keith Lee's face. Jaw-jacking before the match started. And I just fucking fast-forwarded because this is ridiculous. Remember all those competitive matches during the Attitude Era that Mark Henry had against Taka Michinoku and Jackie Moore? Fucking idiots. Just because you can cut your own ear off doesn't make you Van Gogh. Just because Keith Lee can work with little old Johnny Gargano. If Keith Lee is on one side of the fucking team, or one team, and Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae are on the other team, and this thing lasts longer than 15 seconds, and he doesn't fucking pancake Gargano and fucking molest LeRae right in front of me, I ain't interested in seeing it, because it's bullshit. Fuck.
Two things. One is, I believe Mia Yim and Keith Lee may be a real-life couple now.
Well, that's fine. I'm not knocking Mia.
And secondly, Dexter Lumis was formerly in TNA as Samuel Shaw.
Sam Shaw, son of a gun.
Actually, it says here, I'm looking at Wikipedia, in TNA's then developmental territory, Ohio Valley Wrestling as well.
Well, but before that, because I wasn't in OVW at that time, but before that, we saw Sam Shaw at a Ring of Honor camp. And he really impressed us, and we liked his demeanor and etc. And his work. This was several years, at least 7-8 years ago. And I don't remember why otherwise than no spot available, and he lived a long way away that we didn't do more with him. But now I kind of feel bad with what things I'm going to say, because I liked Sam Shaw as Sam Shaw, but more on that later. So anyway, I didn't watch that fucking mixed tag because what the fuck? You know, put Stone Cold Steve Austin and partners with Cowboy Lang on the fucking second match. Fuck. Finn Balor versus Cameron Grimes. I loved this. Cameron Grimes has been one of my guilty pleasures. He's from North Carolina. Why is it everybody from North Carolina knows how to work? And he has a different looking body and he's got facials. His work was great. He stands out. He looks different. I wish he was a little bigger. Finn Balor is a fucking machine. He's ripped like Dynamite Kid. He just looks like a badass. I wrote this Cameron Grimes can work his ass off. The match made sense. I loved their break spot. Grimes gave Finn Balor a turnbuckle. And that was the break spot. Not a goddamn dive. Everybody stands there and catches, whatever. He fucking shot him off corner to corner and fucking went with it. And did you see the body language he put on it where Balor hit the buckle hard and Grimes took a bump off and went with it with the throw and fucking kind of face planted. And boom, and he's selling it. You sell a turnbuckle. Imagine that if you sell something, you don't have to do things twice as fucking dangerous. Then they came back. Balor made a great comeback. Some big back and forths. And at this point now you can tell that not only do they want to do more with Cameron Grimes, but you can tell that Finn Balor especially believes that Cameron Grimes can work because he did over and above. Balor's a big star. He was on the main roster. He's been around the world. He did more over and above false finishes for Grimes, who held his part up. Everything he did was great. But a guy like Balor giving Grimes that much and kicking out of several finishes then, he obviously has respect for the guy's talent. That wasn't just a favor thing he was doing for the office. He's really trying to get the guy over. And then finally, Balor hit that double foot stomp off the top rope. Fuck that. Good luck. I'll be somewhere else when you come down, motherfucker, on that one. That looked a little fucking stiff. And then that double arm brainbuster, I don't understand. And he did it perfectly. And like I said, I'm a huge fan of Balor's work, and it was safe here. Maybe the stomp was stiff. The brainbuster was safe, but they can't do a pile driver, but they can do that? They banned the pile driver, right? Up there. They can't pile drive people anymore. I would imagine, from having been pile driven by some of the best pile driving people, that is probably about 5 to 10 times as safe as that double arm brainbuster. Take a pile driver. But anyway, it looked good. 1, 2, 3. Boom. That was a great fucking match. That was, if I hadn't seen FTR and they were just so fucking surprisingly good compared to most tag team matches I've seen lately, that would have been my favorite match, Balor and Grimes. But I mean, they can do it. They can be serious. They don't have to fucking do all this stupid shit. They're out there. Nobody pay any attention. What'd you think?
I thought it was good. I like Finn Balor a whole lot more in NXT than I did on the main roster. I'm high on Cameron Grimes like you are, and like you, I like that he doesn't look like everybody else. And I mean, that's probably unfair. A lot of people are going to say, oh, well, there's so many different looking people. But he doesn't look like he spends all day in the gym. And, yes. I don't mean that as a slight. I mean that as a good thing. He looks like some crazy Southern guy that you're going to get in the ring with.
He looks like who he is purported to be. And everybody's going, oh, well, you knock these other guys for looking like shit. Well, you know what? Either embrace looking like shit and make it part of your gimmick, or elsewise don't look like shit. When that hatchet-headed fucking Chuck Taylor with his sway back, or that fucking Jelly and Datello with his sway back and fucking low-slung trunks and no definition, they don't have any body hair either, which makes them look 12. But here you got a grown adult man with some fucking body hair on him. And he doesn't have a tan, and he's not oiled up like everybody else, which makes him different, but he still moves and looks like an athlete. But, anyway, that was interesting. I like that one. And then we went to the Undisputed Era, finding a picture that Dexter Lumis has apparently drawn, and Roddy freaked out, and the other guys leave, and then Lumis is peeking at him in the fucking through the window in the door, and Roddy goes apeshit and runs. When did Roddy become a fucking just balls out coward?
I don't know. We haven't watched regularly in a while. So
I know it's 2 months ago, Undisputed Era were these cool young guys that kicked ass and were fucking incredible athletes, and now it's become, goddamn, it's a fucking Three Stooges routine. What happened in the last 2 months? Maybe they changed writers. That's probably what it was. So then I fast forwarded to the end because Adam Cole and Dexter Lumis was at the end. Booking lesson for all the creative writers that think they're creative. Just because you come up with an idea for a fucking gimmick doesn't mean that anybody can be that gimmick. And I like Sam Shaw. When he worked as Sam Shaw, he had the, fucking tattoos, and he was doing something different besides this. I don't know. But here's the problem. It was cosplay Undertaker. Did you get that impression that it's cosplay Undertaker in another name? I mean, I know they're Loomis, Dr. Loomis in Halloween. The gimmick and the stance that Dexter Lumis has is sort of like the Michael Myers gimmick, which, of course, Undertaker took some of the, the sit up and the fucking head turn, from fucking Michael Myers. A lot of people think that he and Kane took the puppy dog thing from Michael Myers. That was actually from the puppy dog. But if you are going to expect someone to be intimidating and scary by having a monotone face and monotone body language and a plodding pace. They need to be a giant. A giant can get by like The Undertaker, like Kane, whatever, with the plodding pace and the monotone face and the no expression and the announcers are especially trying to get this guy over as cold and heartless and, emotionless. Is he there? What kind of psycho is he? Right? All that stuff. Sorry. You can't be, when you got normal size and look, you have to be insane with your face and your voice and your body language. Like Terry Funk. This guy is not a maniac. He's just a guy moving very slowly. It's like the fucking Gorn in the Star Trek episode, The Arena. The fucking Gorn moved so slow, Kirk could fucking duck him 3 times before he swung once, right? But so they had to, it was hard to make the fucking Gorn a goddamn threatening enemy because you could fucking stay away from him forever. But the only way Kirk could kill him was to make the fucking gunpowder. Well, this guy's not 7 feet tall. He's not 300 and something pounds. So something like that plodding at you when it's your same size, just fucking duck and run away. Whatever the fuck. You can see the difference when you're that size. You're a maniac with your face, with your voice, with your body language, with your eyes, with your actions. Terry Funk, same size, could make people believe he was a raving lunatic and a homicidal maniac. This guy was just wandering around. If he was working like a regular person, his shit was fine, and he looks like an athlete. He's awful nice, clean cut to be a psychopath, but this gimmick is not going to work in this manner. I'm sorry. And most of Adam Cole's matches I love, this took forever and went nowhere because he wasn't scaring anybody, because they have tried to fucking come up with something in the writers in their minds to get this guy to work like that and to do it. And all the producers are telling him, do this, do that. And the gimmick ain't working. I don't believe. And finally, Loomis had him, but Roddy interfered and Adam hit the knee 1, 2, 3. And then Adam Cole is over him taunting Loomis, and he takers up, sits up and fucking grabs his hold again. And here comes the rest of the era. They get some heat. Velveteen Dream comes out and takes out Bobby Fish. Roddy runs from Loomis, who now is fine after being laid out seconds before. And then the blackout, and here comes Scarlett and puts an hourglass in the ring and turns it over. What'd you think? I don't know.
Well, let me start with the end. I didn't see the In Your House, but I heard good things about Karrion Kross and Scarlett there. For me, it was a little too theatrical. Her coming out with the hourglass. There just happens to be a light shining on a little spot in the ring for her to put the hourglass.
After everybody but Adam Cole just happened to powder out and be gone.
Yeah, I did not like that.
Can you see this as the closing segment on Mid-South Wrestling? Would they have stopped the brawl for a woman to come out and stop time so she could literally start time?
No, I see this as the closing segment on Night Gallery. Not on fucking Mid-South Wrestling.
And not even the Twilight Zone, by the way, but Night Gallery, where Rod Serling didn't even get his fucking way with the networks.
That's right, not even the Twilight Zone. Loomis has, he has an interesting look. I wasn't pulled into the match. I'm going to say something now you're going to completely disagree with me on, or you're going to completely think I'm off base. But hear me out for a moment. Because we just talked about Adam Cole recently. I guess it would have been on the drive-thru. We had a question about him staying with NXT or going to AEW. And we were talking about his size. Besides the fact that he needs a tan, I've never said this about any other wrestler I could think of. But I think under a doctor's supervision, Adam Cole needs to go on steroids.
Get on the gas!
Yeah, I just thought between having no tan and, because we had just talked about it, so I was looking at his arms and I was looking at his muscle tone. That's the only thing missing in his game is he has no size at all. At all. And I said he was 10 pounds lighter than Michaels in 96. He's probably 25 pounds lighter than Shawn Michaels in 1996. And there's no way Vince McMahon would ever push him on the main roster. And I'm not saying he's not talented enough to deserve that push. I'm saying Vince McMahon will see that and go, he's not big at all. I mean, he has less muscle tone than Daniel Bryan, who is in good shape, but he's like one of the smaller guys on the main roster. And I think that will hurt him everywhere but NXT.
But you said under a doctor's supervision, like a doctor is going to be able to do anything other way. Here's some fucking steroids. Well, I'll tell you the safe way to take them. But here's the thing also. I mean, it doesn't exist. But I've known guys years ago that weren't the hardcore bodybuilders, but just dabbled a little bit to get some size. And it's the same thing as anything else. If you just do it a little bit, I used to do a little, but a little didn't get it. So a little got more and more. If you just do a little, chances are you're not going to have any fucking issues to begin with. He doesn't need to goddamn go into his general practitioner and say, hey, doc, can you hook me up with the good stuff? Or drink some fucking milkshakes and do a lot of push-ups.
Yeah, look, maybe a weight gainer and a bunch of protein shakes will do it. I hate to sound like superstar Billy Graham here. I really do. And that's
but there's a difference between 280 pounds ripped to shreds and jacked to the gills and 200 pounds with, a fucking 19-inch bicep, maybe. I see where you're going with this. He needed, and he's still young. Good God, he's not 30 yet because he was fucking 19 when we had him in 2012. A lot of times, well, look at Kendall Windham. Last time I saw him, he was fucking bigger than me.
He's 30.
Well, okay. Well, then there you go. He was 19 in 2010, whatever the fuck he was. Anyway, point is, Adam, milkshakes, cheeseburgers, and push-ups in the hotel room. That's what Bobby Fulton used to do. And Danny Davis did it also. They would just do push-ups like when they couldn't afford a gym and et cetera. Just do push-ups over and over and over again. And they both had a pretty good spread there, arms and chest there at one time in their lives. Anyway, I see where you're going with that. And he does need some bulk,
some gravitas
up top. But I would rather, if I'm talking about if he weighs 190, he ought to weigh 210. I'm not talking about goddamn, they said the Warlord, Terry, we met him in 1986. He was 21 years old and 320 pounds and hard as a fucking rock. He graduated high school at 18 at 185.
Holy shit.
Yeah. So there's extreme cases.
Yeah, I'm not saying, look, like even Champa, you look at him now and he's got a completely different physique than he used to have. I'm not even saying like that, but he needs some size. He just needs a little bit more size because he has everything else. Because he could work. He's a great promo. He has a good look, but and again, he was in there with a bigger guy like Loomis, so it really stood out to me. Maybe if he was in there with the Young Bucks, it wouldn't stand out as much. But that's the only thing I think he needs.
If fucking Skylo Low was in there with the Young Bucks, he'd be fucking
or Cowboy
thinking he had lifts in his boots.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. And now, can you see the headlines? Cornette and co-host demand top NXT star take steroids.
I know how this works. The headline will be Jim Cornette demands he takes steroids.
Well, I was trying to include you in that because I always want to include you in things.
No. They will ignore me and go right to you, and I'm fine with that.
All right. Well, anyway. All right. Well, I'm fine with closing on that note then. If you're going to leave me twisting in the wind to be thrown to the wolves, then we will close this edition of The Experience and we'll come back next week with even further provocative testimony. How's that sound to you?
That sounds good. I think we should just make a little programming note here. Of course, all the clips and full episodes and omnibuses are available. tinyurl.com/official. Corny YouTube. Go to YouTube and search for Jim Cornette. And also,
don't expect to hear me go off about current events and politics on the YouTube channel because they're a little picky. So that's exclusively for podcast listeners. You can handle the truth out there in podcast land.
That's right. And also one other note, we are right now working on some ideas for more watch-alongs. Stay tuned because that will not just be an experience feature, that will be experience and drive-through. And of course, added bonus video of the watch-along for patrons.
As soon as I get past the action figure debacle that will be next week, then we're going to start watching some things.
That's right.
All right. Oh, this is my show. I guess I should close it up, shouldn't I? Fuck, I keep forgetting. All right, folks. In the meantime and in between time, and until next time, we'd like to wish you a great time all the time. Here on The Experience, we will see you next week to make some other people mad and some other people happy. And until then, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody.